on this radio program. Well, I shouldn't say that. The last time we've done it on this radio program was the Tuesday before the Titans played the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. Ian, do you know what I'm referring to?
The Tuesday before the Titans played the Chiefs in the championship game?
Mm-hmm.
Not off the top of my head, I do not.
Caroline, do you know what I'm getting at?
I don't think so.
So here's a little blocking and tackling at the fundamentals of the radio show. There are very few teams in the NFL that will get what I call 4 days worth of discussion and coverage for a Titans game. Usually it's Wednesday when you start talking about the next game. Now, in the playoffs, it's a little different because once you win, everybody wants to talk about the next game and what is this. So I always try to do 1 day recapping and then right on Tuesday to the next game. We've been doing this show now for 5 years, and I'm not sure the Jacksonville Jaguars have ever been a Tuesday team, a team that we talked about on Tuesday. Like when they would play Brady and Belichick and the Patriots, that might be a Tuesday topic. Playoff games, you do 1 day on the game you won, and then you're right on to the next team. But Urban Meyer had to enjoy himself out on the town this weekend. And so it's funny because I think everybody for the most part knows this story. And it's wild that the Titans are playing the Jags on Sunday because it is just a disaster right now in Jacksonville. And I want to start on that. And so we're not going to do 4 days of talking about the Jags. Could Trevor Lawrence be the guy? Well,
but this isn't
Friday.
Just talking about the Jags.
Maybe Friday. The Jets, here's how this is how you have to do it in sports radio. If the Titans were to play the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday, we could legitimately talk Cowboys today, tomorrow, Thursday, Friday.
For sure.
When they played the Jets, we talked so little Jets. Did you notice that? The only extended Jet, we never did a topic about Zach Wilson. The only extended Jets topic we did was about Corey Davis and whether or not picking him was the biggest mistake the Titans ever made.
And that was looking at Corey Davis through a Titans lens.
Yes.
Not a Jets lens.
Because I knew that we couldn't talk Jets. Nobody cared. And we shouldn't have talked Jets. So anywho, if everybody I've talked to has a varying degree of knowledge on the Urban Meyer situation. So I think we should catch them up chronologically. So this all starts on Saturday. Saturday night, I'm at the Preds game. I've had a couple of cocktails. I'm not going to lie. And I see on Twitter somebody posts a meme that says, Tim Tebow when he finds out why Urban Meyer is trending. And the picture is of Ned Flanders, the religious neighbor of The Simpsons. And I'm like, what? So now I start doing some digging. Well, I'm at the Preds game, and the Wi-Fi there is not as great as, say, the Wi-Fi at my own home. So I'm trying to see this video. And I see this video of Urban dancing with some blonde bombshell who's I think a lot of people are saying 24. I don't know if they actually know if she's 24 or if they're just generalizing and saying 24.
24 sounds like it could be correct.
Okay, so Urban's at a bar in Ohio.
I don't know her.
With an Ohio State pullover, a quarter zip Ohio State pullover on. And he's dancing with this girl. I mean, clearly he's grinding with this girl. It's like anything you've ever seen at a bar. If you've ever been out on Broadway or you've ever been to Midtown or you've ever been anywhere that has a bar that serves alcohol, and I'm guessing if you're listening to the show, you probably have, then you know exactly what we're talking about. It just happens to be that Urban Meyer is famous and famously married. So that starts popping out. And I'm like, ha, 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 that's pretty funny. This idea that we're going to be clutching pearls today about how dare Urban cheat on his wife, that's not really my thing.
That's not my place to talk about Urban Meyer's marriage.
Doesn't mean we can't, though.
Doesn't mean we can't and doesn't mean we won't.
I mean, he brought
I'm
it
just
to us.
fully aware that it's not my place.
It's not like we went out and got a copy of the National Enquirer and started reading through it on the air.
I mean,
we're not doing that.
That's on him.
So he brought this to us. So here's Urban with this blonde bombshell, and everybody's laughing about it. And then everybody forgets about it because there's a Sunday of football. And then here comes Monday. And Urban holds a press conference. And so, Ian, do we have the press conference? Because I think it's a minute long of Urban talking about...
It's a minute 47.
Okay. This is Urban. And the audio, because I've seen the video and the audio of this, the audio is not going to do it justice So I'm going to have to tell you ahead of time that every question Urban answers, if you're looking at the stream, I'm going to do my impersonation of it right now. By the way, we are streaming on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube, thanks to the law offices of Amanda Gentry. This is Urban. This is what Urban looked like with his head down. Like, if you're looking at the stream, maybe you can see my bald spot or not. I don't know. But, like, Urban's just looking down and does not look anybody in the eye for this 1 minute and 49 seconds. Go ahead and play it.
Yeah. I just apologize to the team and the staff and for being a distraction, just stupid. And so I explained everything that happened and owned it, and just stupid. Should not have myself in that kind of position.
Urban, did you fly back with the team, or did you stay in?
No, I stayed to see the grandkids, and we all went to dinner that night at a restaurant, and then there's a big group next to our restaurant, and they wanted me to come over and take pictures, and I did. And they were trying to pull me out on the dance floor, screwing around, and I should have left.
How did the team react? I mean, they're probably pretty reactionary, or how did they take it? Your apology?
Well, I've always been so defensive of them. I remember when Trevor told me he was going to go to Vegas for his bachelor party. I mean, I was just, my gosh, man, be careful and surround yourself, and because I've seen this happen. And
first of all, way to bring Trevor into this, by the way.
So the team, I spoke to a bunch of leaders one-on-one, spoke to all the players. They're good. They were focused on Tennessee, and I apologized again for being a distraction. And a coach should not be a distraction.
How about your family? Did you feel a need to apologize to your family?
Yeah, of course I did. Yeah, that's not me, and that's they were upset.
Have you talked to Shad Khan about it, and what was that conversation like?
I did talk to Shad, and very supportive, and Trent, I talked to him obviously at length. Right when I got that phone call that night, the next night.
So there you go. So Urban, very sincere, very apologetic. It was stupid. I was having dinner and I got dragged over. They wanted to take some pictures and I should have been up on the dance floor, and it was stupid. And okay. First of all, when I think of integrity, I don't think of Urban Meyer.
No.
Those don't go hand in hand.
This
Now,
isn't a new thing.
When I think of good college football coach, I think of Urban Meyer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you could hire him at Vanderbilt and he'd win some games. It's crazy, but it's true. Now, I never thought Urban was going to be a good coach in the NFL. So then he has that press conference that is just so insincere and clearly incredibly disingenuous. Then another video comes out from another angle that shows the girl grinding on Urban. And if at any point I cross any insensitive lines, please stop me.
I mean, this feels like a gift that was given to us today.
Shows the girl grinding on Urban Meyer. And again, we're generalizing here, but what do we think? 24 years old? 25 years old?
She's young.
And Urban's fingers, the index finger and the middle finger, are right on, I don't know what to call it, like the hemming of...
Like this seam.
The seam of the ass of the jeans. And, the fingers are, going in. You know what I mean?
They're where they should not be.
Yes.
There are a lot of places where your hands can be. That's not one of where they should be.
It's like how he's going to want Trevor Lawrence to thread the needle, with the football. That's what Urban was doing with his fingers in that girl's rear end. And so that video comes out. So here's Urban. Yeah, it was stupid. I had dinner, grandkids, and you got sent pictures next door, and they want me to come over. It was just so stupid, and I just So we were in the middle of discussing Urban Meyer and the latest with Urban. And so just to recap it, Urban got caught on a video with a girl, said that he was dragged out on a dance floor, essentially lied. Everybody knew he lied. New video comes out, fingers in the girl's rear end.
Yep.
I'm short of anything there. So then
I think
today,
we get the gist there.
So today the Jags, I think it was Michael Lombardi this morning reported from The Athletic, or I don't even know if Michael Lombardi's with The Athletic anymore. Anywho, he reported that there were closed-door meetings going on in Jacksonville, and that there were discussions that had nothing to do with the Titans, as Lombardi put it, which, of course, I think is a big reference to, the fact that they were talking about firing Urban Meyer.
Yes.
Then 3 hours ago, a statement from the Jags, quote, I have addressed this matter with Urban. This is from Shad Khan, the owner of the Jags. I have addressed this matter with Urban. Specifics of our conversation will be held in confidence. What I will say is his conduct last weekend was inexcusable. I appreciate Urban's remorse, which I believe is sincere. Now he must regain our trust and respect. That will require a personal commitment from
It's Stillman and Company here on ESPN 102.5. The Game, Stillman and Company, driven by or delivered by TriStar Moving. Ryan Porth and Chase McCabe here with you in studio as some technical difficulties going on. Jared Stillman and Caroline Fenton on the way here to the studio as we speak. Chase, Jared and Caroline started the show talking about Urban Meyer.
Yep. Well,
is there anything going on in Jacksonville this week?
I can't wait. Tomorrow on Darren, Donick, and Chase, we're going to go down to Jacksonville. And
you're literally going to, like, drive down to Jacksonville?
No. Well, you know what I mean. We're going to get a guest on from Jacksonville and discuss that. And I have a feeling that we might spend 2 minutes on the actual game. I mean, Urban Meyer is dominating the story right now when it comes to Jacksonville.
I have a feeling the team down there might spend 2 minutes this week on the actual game Sunday against the Titans.
You know, I know that, like, these are professional athletes, and there are going to be football people that tell you that it's not going to be a distraction for them. But you can't tell me for a second that it's not. The head coach is in a firestorm right now over – he's not going to get fired over it. Like I know Shad Khan came out with a pretty strong statement. I am curious if the league has anything to say about it because of conduct policy and
sure.
You know, they came down on Kraft when he had his deal. Different situation, but still all about images. But I think it is a distraction. And, you know, I think that there was already rocky, rough waters there with the players and with Urban Meyer. And it just, again, I think it just feels like this isn't going to work long term.
Well, and if anybody has missed it, you know, Urban Meyer was caught on video in different videos. I guess it was Friday night, either Friday or Saturday night. Yeah. Was it Friday night? In an Ohio bar after Jacksonville had played the Cincinnati Bengals on Thursday night. I guess after he had gone to a family dinner with his grandchildren, ends up at a bar and has these young women dancing on him, and he is not pushing them away or anything. Let's just put it that way, and moving his hands into places that
they shouldn't go.
They shouldn't go. And now that has caused him to apologize yesterday, which was painful to watch.
Oh,
him try to sit in front of them or stand in front of the media, answer those questions. He brings Trevor Lawrence and Trevor Lawrence's bachelor party into this equation. So now has ruffled feathers.
That was BS, to be honest with you. Like, that was
absolutely
total BS to do that.
Absolutely. And now you're wondering, A, whether or not he's going to be on the sideline Sunday when the Jags take on the Titans, whether he's going to be the coach of the Jags by the end of the season. On top of this, it's already been a tire fire down in Jacksonville throughout the offseason with some hires he made, and the fact that they have started 0-4, and, you know, they put out this memo to the fans after the second game of the year asking for patience, which is something you just don't see from NFL teams. I mean, it just feels like a complete cluster down there.
Yeah, and, you know, Shad Khan issued this statement, which I'm you know, we read the statement earlier on Darren, Donick, and Chase, and I was like, okay, whatever. I mean, yeah, I don't know what you do here. I mean, it's a tire fire, firestorm, however you want to put it. Words I can't say on the radio, but a show. That's exactly what it is. But to turn this to relate this back here to the game this week, I think it is a distraction. I think that things are, you know, not going to be resolved before Sunday. But my question to you is, do you trust the Titans enough with all the stuff that they're dealing with injury-wise and coming off a awful loss to the Jets? Do you trust them to take advantage of the situation and actually go in there and open up a can? Because I'm going to be honest with you, I don't. I mean, this is it's a perfect situation for them to really take control and bounce back after a bad loss, and I just don't know if I trust them to do that.
I mean, not only are the Jags 0-4 this season, they've lost 19 consecutive games.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this isn't just a 2021 thing with them. And this is a team that the Titans, they've had their number. I mean, they won both games against them last year. Derrick Henry,
Henry's had
some of the
their number.
most epic moments in his career, including the 99-yard run, has been against Jacksonville, specifically after that gong show that we watched Sunday against the New York Jets. I would be 10 times more disappointed if the Titans went down to Jacksonville, laid an egg, than I was Sunday, because Sunday was so predictable, right? We've seen that movie so many times before with the Titans against teams that they are clearly better than, and they lose those games. Not saying it's acceptable. We had just seen that movie before. This would be next level gong show.
Yeah.
If they go down to Jacksonville and lose that game. And I'm not, like you, I'm not completely ruling it out because of the injury situation.
Yeah.
And because of how this team has just been so Jekyll and Hyde so far this season, with a lot more Hyde.
Oh, a lot more.
I mean, what, a quarter and a half of good play in Seattle.
Yep.
The Indianapolis game was they played well enough to win against that team that day, but if they played that way against a good team, they probably would have lost. And then you have what happened in New York, where it was just one boneheaded mistake after another. So no, I don't trust the Titans to go down there and beat them 31-10 like they should.
I mean, they may, and the point I was making is they could go down there and win, but to me, this should be a decisive win. That on paper, the Titans are a much better football team. They don't have the same type of drama going on that, they have normal football team drama going on right now, whereas the Jags don't. I don't trust them to take advantage of the situation that they should take advantage of.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about taking advantage of a game, I think of their performance in Jacksonville last December, where they went in there and kicked the Jags' teeth in. And that final score was 31-10, and that, I believe, was coming off an embarrassing loss. Yes, the embarrassing loss to Cleveland, where they gave up like 60 points in the first quarter, or at least it seemed.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is so you brought something up earlier about going back to Urban specifically. Do you think he will be on the sideline on Sunday? Do you think that, I mean, if Shad Khan was going to suspend him, he would have done it already. Like I think the statement comes out and he goes, Coach is going to be out this week. You just do that in one fell swoop. Do you think that the league steps in and the league says you're going to sit for a week? I see it as more of if they're going to do anything, it's going to be a fine.
Does he remove himself from the sideline? He has removed himself from situations in the past.
I know, but
do you know how awkward it would be for him to be on the sideline on Sunday?
Yeah,
after everything, and look, what started Saturday night evolved into something worse on Sunday, evolved even worse yesterday with him standing in front of the media and talking. Now there's another layer to it today with Shad Khan having his statement. Like, where is this going to go in the next 5 days before the game?
So are you saying that he removes himself, like he just sits out a week, or you're saying that he just is like, I'm out? Because I don't think he said I'm out yet. I wouldn't be surprised if that comes later. Because there's too much at stake financially here. For him to walk away.
I mean, would it surprise you if the Jags let him go before Sunday? Would it surprise you?
Nothing surprises me with them at this point.
That's why I'm presenting it as a question of whether or not he's even going to be on the sideline on Sunday.
Well, and then I'm sure you've read all the conspiracy theories that this has been, this is his plan, that he's realizing like, oh, this was a bad move. I shouldn't do that. I'll get myself fired. Then I'll go to SC, which I think is silly. I mean, but it's Urban. So I wouldn't put anything past him at this point.
Could the players go to management and say, we're not playing? Well, we're not playing, but we would prefer for Urban to not be on the sideline.
Yeah.
Because everything stemming out of that locker room here in the last 24 hours, ever since he met with the media, is they're not happy with him. That they have lost respect for him. They don't trust him anymore. There was the one, I believe, was it Michael Silver's tweet that the locker room or one of the position group rooms kind of laughed at him on his way out after his apology.
I mean, I don't think he ever had the room, but If he did, he's losing it or he has lost it. And the fact that he just threw the franchise quarterback under the bus because of his mess, like that's not going to help matters either. So there's a lot at play here. And a text I want to read on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHonda.com, Shane from Ashland City. Can they do that? Meaning can the league suspend him or whatever? Like, I don't condone what he did, but what if his wife is okay with it and he knows he does this normally? Why would the league do anything about it? I think that's between them. This is all about optics. And this is a bad look for Urban Meyer, for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and for the National Football League. And Roger Goodell and the other owners and Shad Khan, they don't like bad looks. And they know they have stumbled and bumbled and fumbled on certain things over the years. They haven't gotten everything right by any means. But this is one of those bad look deals that they want to go away, and they want it to go away fast.
Right.
So if saying, hey, you know what, Urban's not going to coach this week, if that helps that, which I don't think it makes it go away completely by any means. I mean, it's going to follow him.
I don't think it helps with him on the sideline.
No, right. So
because he is the elephant on the sideline if he is on the sideline.
Imagine how many times the camera would pan to Urban Meyer in a week. Like
it's already on him all the time because he's not looking at the field.
Constantly.
He's looking. Well, he is
during the game
looking at the field, but he's looking at the white paint on the sideline because his hands are on his knees, and he's looking down at the field literally instead of watching the game. So the camera is always on him when that happens. What a situation in Jacksonville. Ryan Port, Chase McCabe here with you. Stillman and Company, ESPN 102.5 The Game, in for Jared and Caroline for the moment as we work out some technical difficulties. We'll continue this conversation on the other side. Plus, we have some thoughts on the Titans draft classes and what they have been getting, or should we say haven't been getting from them early on this season. That's on the other side. He's Chase McCabe. I'm Ryan Porth, and this is ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in. Ryan Porth, Chase McCabe here with you. Stillman and Company, ESPN 102.5 The Game. Jared and Caroline will be back on here in just a little bit. Chase, there's been a lot of criticism towards the Tennessee Titans here in the last couple of days, rightfully so. Since, 47 hours ago, they lost to the New York Jets in New York in overtime in just embarrassing fashion. And I woke up yesterday with my mind geared towards...
That's always a win.
Hey, we woke up this morning. We all won. But I woke up yesterday morning with one individual in mind with the Tennessee Titans in terms of why I came away just with a bad taste in my mouth from Sunday's game. And you could go on and on about Ryan Tannehill. You could go on and on about Taylor Lewan or the rest of that offensive line. You could go on and on about the coordinators, Mike Vrabel. But John Robinson kept entering my mind following Sunday's loss to the Jets and the roster construction that he's done in the last couple of years, specifically with the draft. And that is the angle, Chase, that I keep going back to as a big reason why this feels like just a total mess right now. When you look at all aspects of the roster, you're a cap-strapped team that has very little to no rookies contributing right now. None.
Yeah. Or, I mean, even second-year players.
Well, Christian Fulton
yeah.
and, to an extent, Larrell Murchison
Yep.
are the only ones from last year's class that are contributing. And Christian Fulton has emerged in a way that I don't think many really expected him to here in Nashville, at least not this soon.
Yeah. I liked the pick. I mean, you can remember last year I actually had him at the tail end of the first round.
I mean, he's been good this year. He didn't have a great game Sunday, but he's been very good in the first 3 games. And you're getting nothing out of your rookie class that you just had back in April. And this is not a team that can afford to be patient with their draft classes when they're in a Super Bowl window. You need rookies to come in here and contribute. And your first-round pick is hurt. Your second-round pick is a healthy scratch. Your 2 third-round picks aren't even getting on the field on defense. Your 4th-round picks, Des Fitzpatrick's on the practice squad. Rashad Weaver
is on IR.
He's done for the year.
Which he was showing. I'll put him in a different category. Sure. He was showing flashes, and then he
can't help it that he broke his leg. But, they are getting nothing.
Brady Breeze is on IR.
They are getting nothing.
Yeah.
Virtually nothing. Outside of Christian Fulton, virtually nothing out of their last 2 draft classes. Mm-hmm. And to me, that is not acceptable. You are in a window where you feel like, as a team, this team can contend for a Super Bowl. At least that is the hope, and it's a realistic hope with a team that went to the AFC Championship game 2 seasons ago, won a division last year, and you've got Derrick Henry in his prime. You've got Ryan Tannehill towards the end of his prime, but still through last season playing high-level football.
Sure.
A.J. Brown, Julio Jones. You've got talent on defense. It needs to be used better, but, I just keep coming back to the fact that they have no tight end, they have no right tackle, and they haven't had a kicker really in 4 years, it feels like. And it feels like they just keep not valuing these positions or just trying to get by at certain positions that you should not be trying to just get by at.
Correct.
And that is just bothering me right now as a Titans fan.
Let me take it a step further because you're referencing the last 2 draft classes. I'll go back to 2019. Jeffrey Simmons is regressing. He's not the dominant player that everybody had hoped he would be this year through 4 games. That's scary because I really thought that he was going to have a big year. A.J. Brown's hurt. We understand that. I think Nate Davis has taken a step back because the entire offensive line has taken a step back.
How much of that for Nate Davis, though, at right guard is the fact that you don't have a right tackle next to him and you've got an aging Ben Jones to his left?
Yeah, I think that Saffold and Nate Davis are suffering from the same things. Lewan is not the same Lewan. And we said it yesterday. I think this is his last year with the Titans. And maybe his last year overall. He might just hang it up. I don't know. But the way he's playing, he is lost.
I doubt he would hang it up.
He has lost a step. So Saffold's suffering from that. Ben Jones is at the end. And I love Ben Jones, but he's at the end. So Nate Davis you can put in that category of maybe he's suffering from what's around him just like Saffold is. Monty Hooker's hurt. DeAndre Walker's not on the team. David Long's been okay. He's shown flashes. Like I think that he's played better than Rashaan Evans. I
would say, though, the 2019 class is one of, if not J-Rob's best, when you take the last 4 games out of it.
Sure.
I
have a point that I'm going with that. This is where I think that, yes, J-Rob's the one making the picks. J-Rob is the one that has a staff that's all about talent evaluation. But I think coaching deserves some of this too. Because what are some of the key factors in the last 2 years, especially when you're talking about players that have been here? I mean, Rashaan Evans has been Byard is going in the wrong direction, but what's been the key thing that has changed? It's been the coaches.
The coordinators.
Specifically. Yeah. Dean Pease could get, and I know Jared says this all the time, and Darren says it on our show. Dean Pease could get the most out of his players. I mean, he had Kamale Correa looking like a competent NFL player just because of the way that he develops and coaches. I don't think these guys are being developed right now. So either, and there's probably a little bit of both, either they're just not the right players and they're not NFL players, and John is drafting these guys, which I have always thought that John's strength was the draft. Free agent signings were questionable at times, but the draft has always been his strength, or they're just not being developed by Mike Vrabel and his coaching staff that has been put together. I think both can be true, but I feel like coaching is certainly to blame and maybe not getting the proper amount of blame that they deserve.
I could see that. I side with more of the question of, are they just picking the wrong guys
for the scheme? Like
is the scouting department under John Robinson giving him, hey, Isaiah Wilson is going to be a bona fide right tackle in this league, and here's XYZ as to why? Are they going to him saying to, Darrington Evans is going to be a great running back as a complement to Derrick Henry, and now he can't stay healthy because his hamstring is –
Well, he ain't been on the field. He's been on the field like he's been here 2 years, and he's played what, one game, 2 games maybe.
It was the Lions game last year.
Yeah, that was the only
and
one.
And we remember that because that's like the only game he was really a factor last
5
year.
games.
5 games. Okay. So all of last year because he hasn't played since the preseason opener in Atlanta this year. Are the scouting staff going to John Robinson saying, hey, you need to trade up for Des Fitzpatrick? And then Fitzpatrick comes in here.
Can't even make the team.
Can't catch a cold.
Yeah. He's not on the team. He's on the practice squad.
Dylan Radins, they draft him as a right tackle. Now they're trying him as a right guard.
Ugh.
He's a healthy scratch. And he was a second-round pick at the same position that you picked your first-round pick last year. But because he was such a bust,
Monty Rice.
You had to go back to the well.
Elijah Molden. And, Molden, I think there's still hope for Molden. I still feel like that he'll get there. But, again, to your earlier point, they're not in the business right now of being able to sit around and wait on a guy to get there.
No, and this is more than just the draft classes. I mean, look at the tight end room. We were sold all offseason that Anthony Ferguson was going to be the number one guy. And when healthy in the first 4 games, he hasn't been on the field for more than 50%.
Well, were we sold or was it we were hopeful because it was by default?
You're probably right.
I mean,
but it's clear that he's not a number 1 tight end.
No, they missed Jonnu Smith. Bad. They missed Jonnu Smith.
I'm sure the Patriots would trade him back to Tennessee, but
I don't know.
The Titans can't afford him.
No, but he had a good game Sunday, so
sure.
Maybe that's what they need. The kickstart he needed.
Like Ferkser is just a pass catching tight end. He's not an all around tight end.
Which on Sunday he had. I mean, he makes towards the end of the game makes that catch. They win the game.
Yeah.
I mean, he dropped a key
you cannot
pass.
trust Anthony Ferkser. You cannot trust Jeff Swaim. Jeff Swaim should not be on an NFL roster. I have no idea what that coaching staff sees in him.
And they cut Stalker.
He's awful.
Like I don't
like
I don't
Michael
know why they cut
Pruitt
Stalker.
is really the only one
in
that tight end room that feels like it's actually that they're actually contributing to what's going on. And then you have the right tackle position that, again, why do you cut Dennis Kelly when your backup plan is Kendall Lamb and Dylan Radens? And we all love Quessenberry, but he's just not a consistent starter in the NFL.
Yeah. Simbrello's coming off an ACL.
So
same deal.
The roster construction where there were warts through the offseason, we were like, oh, well, you know what? They could do this to make it better, or they could do that. It will be fine. It's not fine.
Yeah.
This thing is a complete and utter mess beyond the stars. And they need their draft classes to actually do something in these last 2 years, and they're not getting it from them. They just aren't. And it's not acceptable. It is not acceptable in a Super Bowl window to essentially, outside of Christian Fulton last year, go over with your draft class. And this draft class could turn into something better than what it looks like right now. But when that happens, it's probably going to be too late.
But I think the problem that I have is, and you can apply this to free agency too. I mean, I liked the Bud Dupree signing, but you also knew what he was dealing with, and that you probably were going to see the ROI next year, starting next year.
Well, and that's the thing with not only Dupree, Julio had the hamstring injury last year. What does he have now?
Hamstring.
And Caleb Farley had all sorts of
sciatica
injuries, including sciatica, in ode to Joe Rexrode, sciatica. But
it's taking
he now has a new injury that is keeping him off the field.
Right. It's taking the flyer on Farley, who you knew was hurt bad. Radens that didn't play. I mean, you picked some guys that didn't play last year, which again, that's just going to be they're not going to be ready from day one, which this team is they need to be ready from day one.
Right.
You know, Molden's a project, which you start getting into the third and the fourth round. Okay, you're going to get some of those guys. But Fitzpatrick not making the team, you know, he's clearly a project that you may just flunk completely. Because how many times last week when we were talking about the receivers that were going to be out and who was going to be elevated and who was going to talk, we weren't talking about Des Fitzpatrick.
Right.
And who was going to play.
I know.
I mean, it wasn't even a thought in my mind. Kinsey was the one that I was thinking, okay, if they bring anybody up, it'll be Kinsey.
Sure.
So you're right. And McMath, nice story, but, you know, I haven't seen much.
He's a shoulder shrug.
Yep.
I mean, it's really the first and the second round picks. Like, you cannot strike out on those.
I would throw third in there as well.
That's fair.
Like the first 2 days.
Yeah.
Rounds
I'd
1
say,
through 3.
I guess that's fair. Yeah. Especially because Darrington Evans, he's got like 81 scrimmage yards in 2 seasons so far. I mean, as a third round pick.
Like 50 or 60 of those were against the Lions last year?
Yeah, I'd have to look exactly. But so, I mean, if you're not going to get anything out of your first, second, or third round picks in 2 straight seasons,
outside of Christian Fulton,
that's asking a lot.
Yeah.
So,
and you're putting a lot of pressure when there are injuries on guys that have either been on the practice squad or you're getting them off the scrap heap because you're trying to make up for the fact that you've whiffed on draft classes. I mean, this is frustrating.
It is.
This is entirely frustrating, and it feels like to an extent it could have been avoidable.
But I mean, like, I'm just looking at 2017, which is the most draft picks, maybe tied for the most draft picks that he's had. And none of these guys, Jayon Brown's the only one that's on the roster. Corey Levin is on the practice squad, which I've never quite understood Corey Levin, because I thought Corey Levin was a good backup offensive lineman, and they just don't seem to agree with me on that. But, you know, Josh Carraway, Brad Seaton, Khalfani Muhammad were 3 7th-round picks. Couldn't even tell you what they did for the team. And then, of course, we know Corey Davis, Adoree Jackson, the 2 first-round picks, they're gone.
Rashaan Evans is going to be gone at the end of the year.
Rashaan Evans is going to be gone. Landry
Is Jeffrey Simmons going to get the 5th-year option?
That's a good question. Probably. I mean,
wonder what that is.
You
for
can
number
make
19,
so we talked.
huh?
I'll see what you think about this. We talked about this a little bit today. Jeffrey Simmons has not been explosive and noticeable like he should be. But do you think that that offensives are respecting him a little bit more, and therefore that's maybe helping Landry have some of the success that he's having.
I mean, maybe, but isn't that why they signed Danico Autry? To get more out of Jeffrey
Yeah.
Simmons?
Mm-hmm. And he's not.
Autry's been fine.
Yeah, Autry's been fine.
But, like, the domino effect has not resulted in what we thought or expected for Jeffrey Simmons, which was the dominant force that we know he's capable of, that he's shown flashes of. But really, since midway through last year, Jeffrey Simmons hasn't been much of a factor.
I feel like this team, the last few years, it's all about flashes. That's what it is. They have guys that show flashes. But now, AJ has had dominant moments for sure. And when he's healthy, I think he'll get back to the form that he's been at. But you got to get more.
I'll be very curious to see if one of AJ or Julio is going to be ready for Sunday. I'm going to doubt it.
I doubt it.
I doubt it. And hopefully, let's all just pray to the heavens that they're going to have enough to beat Jacksonville. Because if they don't,
Ian, if they don't,
I hope people listening
Mondays,
heard.
Watch out!
I hope people listening heard the laugh in the background behind the glass of Ian just laughing because he knows what next Monday would be like.
Also, I'd feel bad for Jared.
You would have a Braves playoff game going on at the same time, probably.
Yeah, we need to talk about that.
Those are entertaining. Those are entertaining shows.
Yeah. That's going on.
Remember that time, Ian? I believe it was 2 years ago when Floyd and I were at Brewhouse South for Game 5 between the Braves and Cardinals. And in the first inning, the Cardinals scored like 10 runs.
I do remember that.
And Floyd and I were like,
I remember that.
Sorry, Floyd and I were like, "Oh man, Jared, he's probably just hating this right now."
Did he go?
Oh, for sure.
Is that why he wasn't there?
I can't remember.
Yeah.
He was probably watching at the time. Anyway, that's what next Monday could be like, all wrapped into one.
Oh, boy.
Let's just pray to God the Titans get a W on Sunday. Let's just pray to God.
Well, Jared's here.
Jared is here. Jared is here. He's soaking wet. It's raining outside. So he and Caroline will take over. On the other side, I'm Ryan Porth. He's Chase McCabe. Jared and Caroline are coming up next here on Stillman and Company, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
Stillman & Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, ESPN 1025 The Game, streaming on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube, thanks to the law offices of Amanda Gentry. We have a theory. If you were listening to the first hour of the show, we were discussing the latest Urban Meyer news. And I have a theory, an Urban Meyer theory, because we got zapped off the air. My theory is Urban got us.
I think he was listening to the show, and I know that Urban has some people everywhere. He may have some people in Nashville that were listening, and he said, nope, get him off.
Oh, I think we got zapped. So anywho,
there'll be no Urban slander on this show.
Anywho, we have moved studios, so we are here. And I just want to go back to the discussion we were having on Urban Meyer. Because I got in my car and I heard Chase and Ryan, and I thought they did a fantastic job. But they were talking about whether or not, with all the drama in Jacksonville, whether or not the Titans are going to win. I think the Titans are probably going to go into Jacksonville and win by 500. But that's a different discussion for later in the week.
They should, at least.
But that's a discussion, like, this is what I'm talking about. You can't do 4 days on the Jacksonville Jaguars. You can't. They're not interesting enough. You can do 4 days on Brady, Belichick, the Patriots, but you can't do 4 days on the Jags. So I'm not even concerned about the Titans right now. Urban Meyer, just to recap, as we did yesterday, or as we did at the start of the show, Urban Meyer, if you don't know the full story, got caught with a girl at a bar. The video came out. Urban apologized, said that he, was just, they wanted to take pictures, so he got caught up in it, and so they took some pictures, and he was dumb and shouldn't have put himself in that position, which nobody believed, right?
Correct.
Okay, so nobody believes it. Then a video comes up showing Urban sticking his fingers like on the hemming of the girl's seam of her rear end on her jeans.
His fingers were in her butt.
His fingers were in her butt. Urban Meyer. The Jags released a statement today saying that Urban will have to earn their trust back, but they believe Urban was sincere in their apologies. So now let's get into it finally. First of all, here's a couple things. I saw, like Mike Silver said with Sports Illustrated, or I think he's with NFL Network, I don't know. Mike Silver said that he talked to like people with the Jags, players, and that the players really didn't have much respect for Urban anyways. They thought it was kind of lame that Urban didn't have a team meeting to apologize to the team, but more so went into individual groups, and to each individual group, he apologized. And then as soon as he walked out the door, all the players laughed. Let me say this, and we'll get to Dan Orlovsky in a second, but I don't think a single Jacksonville Jaguar player cares about Urban Meyer running around on his wife. I think that's the last thing that they care about.
I mean, they were probably like, yeah, coach, good for you.
I think it's the other way around. I thought they were like, oh, damn, coach got caught. Oh, coach got caught. But I'm going to say this. I mean, like, somebody tweeted me today and was like, you shouldn't go, clutching your pearls over Urban Meyer running around on his wife. I'm not, because I don't care. I think it is incredibly embarrassing for Urban Meyer. Like, I'm embarrassed for him, but because I don't like Urban Meyer, I think it's funny. But more so, I think the bigger issue here is, like, I knew this was going to be a mess. I didn't think it was going to be this bad this fast. I mean, it's bad in Jacksonville. Like, he is sticking his finger in a girl's butt. Like,
at a
the
bar.
Head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars is sticking his finger in a girl's butt at a bar. This girl could not be older than 26 years old.
She's young.
I mean, in her butt. And so I think, like if I owned the Jags, I would have never hired Urban. When the Jags hired Urban Meyer, I was like, yes. I had the same excitement when the Colts traded for Carson Wentz. Because I knew the Jags were going to get Trevor Lawrence. See, I didn't like that. I'm like, oh, no, the Jags are going to get Trevor Lawrence, and then they might have to deal with this every year. Like, they had to deal with Peyton Manning. They had to deal with Andrew Luck. And so now they're going to get Trevor Lawrence. Then I saw they're going to hire Urban Meyer, and I was like, yes. And Trevor's going to be on the show later, and we got a lot of college football to get into with Trev, so I'm not sure we're going to get with this. But Trevor Maddich, he was like, oh, I think Urban's going to be a great guy. I'm like, no, he's not. He was never going to be a good NFL coach.
Well, I told you, I want to say less than a month ago, you said over-under on Urban staying in the NFL for 3 years. I said under. 100%.
Excuse me.
Under.
Excuse me for not being able to predict that Urban would stick his fingers in a girl's butt on camera at a bar. I'm sorry.
To be fair,
I'm sorry.
I didn't necessarily expect Urban's exit to be butt-related, but it is.
We have 20 years of Urban Meyer being the world's biggest chotch. Fair?
That's more than fair.
I mean, he was a complete chotch at Florida. He was the biggest a-hole at Ohio State. I mean, just the biggest. And so now, here's Urban in this, now it's funny. It's funny because of who it is. Now, if I own the Jags, and again, I don't want to be like Johnny, how dare he run away on his wife? That got nothing to do with me. Although, again, I think it's pretty funny. I think I'd fire Urban, but I wouldn't fire him. And this is the whole reason why they were talking about firing him. They're not firing him because he's cheating on his wife. They're not This is not 1966. They are not firing a man because he cheats. Everybody cheats on their wife in the NFL.
Well,
I shouldn't
really
say
sad.
that, but I've had people that have worked in the NFL that have basically told me, hey, man, it's more often than not that these guys are doing this kind of stuff.
That's sad.
But it's not that, because I don't care about that. I subscribe to the light socket theory, which is you want to do whatever you want to do in a light socket, do it as long as it doesn't have to do with me.
Right.
I'm fine with it. But the bigger issue is I'd fire him because he's not a good coach. And not only that, everything that you had to fear about Urban Meyer. And this was it was a weird feeling about how I felt when Jacksonville hired the guy, which was, the one thing that I would do if I was in his position, successful college coach, goes to the pros, is I would look at all the guys that have come before me that have made this jump, and I'd be like, okay, how can I be more like Jimmy Johnson than be like Steve Spurrier? How can I be more like Pete Carroll than be more so like Nick Saban? And not only that, people forget Saban won Coach of the Year. He was in the NFL for 2 years. He won Coach of the Year his first year.
But ultimately, his NFL career was not successful.
I think Saban could have been a good coach in the NFL, though. I think Saban, if you told me that the Jacksonville Jaguars were drafting Trevor Lawrence and that they went out and got Nick Saban, I'd be worried about that. I'm not worried about Urban Meyer, and I never was. And I think Urban, as far as college is concerned, is not as good of a coach as Saban, but he's right there with him. As far as the elite of the elites. But we all knew Urban was this just control freak, hands all over everybody. Not literally, although now we do know it's now literally. This hands-on control freak. And he never, when you go to the pros, you can't do that because these guys make way more money than you. In college, the players would be legitimately bothered that their coach was out on the town running around with some girl and he's married and how dare he, and in college that would matter. It does not matter in the pros. The pros don't care. The pros are making $9 million a year. They got 3 kids at home. They got a wife. I don't even know if they like their wife on that particular day. They got a lot going on. They don't care about Urban Meyer doing that. But everything he's done has just been a disaster. And this happens every time. Steve Spurrier got to the Washington football team. And what did he do? He went out and brought in Danny Werfel, Florida quarterback, and Jaquez Green, and Rydell Anthony, his Florida guys. How'd that work out? The problem with college coaches is they get to the NFL, they think they can do it like they did in college, and they can't. And now I feel like there's been enough failures of that. John Beilein, the Michigan coach, is a complete and total jerk. And that guy spent a half a season in the NBA because it was like, wow, I guess I can't treat these kids that are making $13 million a year the way that I was treating kids that were making $30,000 scholarship. Stunning. And so, it's funny because it's Jacksonville and it's another mess. And I kind of hate it, though. I love the story. But I kind of hate it. Because I think if I own the Jags, this is what I would do. Because I'm with them. I'd fire Urban, but not because he stuck his fingers in a girl's butt. I'd fire Urban because I think he's nuts. And I don't think he can coach at the NFL level.
But also, this situation could be a scapegoat for the Jaguars.
What do you mean?
To say that, hey, we're not going to fire him because he stuck his fingers in a girl's butt. But, no pun intended. But I asked you this morning, do you think that situation would have been different if they weren't 0-4?
Oh, yeah. But see, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Is
I would use
they
this.
fire him in this to
Sure.
for this.
Yeah, it's gaslighting.
Yes.
And that's exactly what I would do. But I probably would fire him, but I never would have hired him. So it's I'm anti-Urban from that standpoint, and then I would have never hired him.
I don't think they're going to fire him.
Here's what I would do, though. I would make him sign like an updated contract after this. Like everything in life is leverage. I would use the leverage from this situation if I was Jacksonville to make Urban sign a new updated contract that guarantees a lot less money. And I would say either we're going to fire you today or you're going to sign this, and it basically lets us out of having to pay you a lot of money that we're going to have to pay you because we agreed to sign you to a long contract when we hired you as coach. And he's not going to want to sign it. I wouldn't want to sign it, but he's going to have to because the option is, get fired or keep your job, and now you're pretty much year to year, which is exactly what I would do. And this is where it bothers me because I believe that the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to fire Urban Meyer at the end of the year. Because I think Shad Khan, I think he's a terrible football owner. I think he's a good businessman, and I think he cares. And I think that like the embarrassment of the Jags would like force his hand to make a move somewhere. And now I'm starting to get scared that Jacksonville's going to fire Urban Meyer at the end of the year and go out and hire a good coach. Because if they hire a good coach, then they got Trevor Lawrence, and now that's something we're all going to have to deal with for a couple of years. If it were the way it was this time last week, before Urban was on camera, before Urban held the press conference, before Urban lied, before Urban, Urban lying is like an every other year kind of thing. But if this were before that, I had no fear of Urban being fired anytime soon because I knew Jacksonville owed him all this money, and I knew he wasn't going to walk away from all the money. Everybody that was out there when USC came open that said, is Urban going to leave Jacksonville to go to USC? I'm like, no. Nobody leaves the NFL to go to USC and make less money. Because unless they plan on paying him, I think Urban's making $8 million a year in Jacksonville. Unless they plan on offering him 14, the money's not going to be the same, LA to Jacksonville. Mm-hmm. Those are state income taxes now in California compared to Florida. It's a totally different ballgame here. And the NFL is probably an easier job than college. It's kind of different, but it's easier from the sense that in the NFL, you don't have to recruit, you don't have to deal with 18-year-olds, and you don't have to deal with moms, and you don't have to. And so, like, he never thought he was going to do that. Now that stuff is kind of in play for me. Because I think that Jacksonville, if they're smart, and they're not, so this is maybe the light here, but that Jacksonville would be smart to have Urban bend over backwards, sign a new contract, and fire him at the end of the year. And if they fire him at the end of the year, they could get a good coach. Anytime a team in the AFC South is looking for a new coach or a new quarterback, I get nervous. Because I get nervous that they could find the right coach or the right quarterback. Because I've seen it too many times. Jim Morris Sr., when he was coaching the Colts, that was perfect because you never had to worry about them winning the Super Bowl with Jim Morris Sr. as their coach. Then they fired Jim Morris Sr. and they hired Tony Dungy, and I didn't like that. Indianapolis loses Peyton Manning, gets Andrew Luck. I don't like that. Then they lose Andrew Luck, and I'm like, okay, let's see what happens here. And then they sign the old man Phillip Rivers, and I'm still nervous because I'm like, okay, this is a temporary fix. Mm-hmm. What's their long-term plan at quarterback? Then when they traded for Carson Wentz, I wanted to throw a parade. With Jacksonville, when the Rams lost to the Jets last year, and that allowed Jacksonville to move up to that top spot for the draft, I got nervous because I'm like, oh, no. Now, look, the Wilson kid has a lot of talent, so he might be pretty good too. But I'm like, oh, no. Because now Jacksonville's going to get Trevor Lawrence. And then I heard they were signing Urban Meyer. I'm like, yep, all right, great, yes. So I think the Urban Meyer story is incredibly funny. I think it shows a pattern of Urban just lying to everybody, which, again, I feel like we've known for the last 20 years that's what Urban Meyer does. But it makes me a little nervous because if I'm the Jags, from a business standpoint, I probably am able to fire Urban at the end of the year. And if they fire Urban at the end of the year, they have Trevor Lawrence at quarterback. And like I said, they could go out and get a good coach. So I'm a little bothered by it. So those are my thoughts. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025. We'll get to your reaction. Anything you threw in there in the first hour about Urban, we'll get to as well. Plus, I got to say something. I am not a pearl clutcher. Like, I am not, how dare Urban this, that, how dare he? But I did hear somebody today who's a former player who had the most ridiculous ridiculous take. I want to get to that coming up next here on Stillman and Company. TriStar Moving, my official movers. So I've been telling everybody about TriStar Moving now for almost a year. And it's a year that I have loved to talk about TriStar Moving because they did a fantastic job when I moved. They made the entire process so simple. There's a reason their motto is TriStar Movers with 5-star service. From the initial phone call to the final signature, moving was a breeze. They offer home protection covering your floors, banisters, railings, door jambs, even the doors themselves. And they are always upping the game when it comes to mover training. TriStar Moving is on the rise because their owners, Garrett and Robert, are true Nashvillians who care deeply about helping their hometown. They have a high standard they hold, and again, I can vouch for that because I moved with TriStar Moving. So if you're looking to move, give my friends at TriStar a call, 615-640-1219, or visit their website, nashvillemoving.org/radio. They'll give you 5% off your entire move. TriStar Moving, 615-640-1219, nashvillemoving.org/radio. Tell them Jared Stillman sent you for 5% off. TriStar Moving, my official movers.
Not only the locker room, but Shad Khan, you need to find your new head coach, bro. It's time for Urban Meyer to be dismissed and relieved of his duties. This is not the first distraction, right? This is not a visceral reaction to what Urban Meyer did, even though there needs to be one to that as well. He brought in a strength coach that had racist history. He brought in Tim Tebow to play tight end, which he never did in the NFL before. This is a pattern that we've seen go on since Urban Meyer has been the head coach in Jacksonville. And then this particular situation with a young quarterback, first pick, just married, 0-4, trying to win football games, and the coach is the exact wrong reason why they in the news. I played football 9 years in the NFL. Every head coach I ever had said, don't be the guy to take focus off of what we're doing as a football team as we try to win games. It was a message that resonated throughout every locker room I've ever been in. Shad Khan, you on the clock, bro. It's time for you to find another head coach for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And it needs to start like right now, like today.
That was Marcus Spears on ESPN. Gosh, I hope they don't fire Urban Meyer. Now, they said they're not going to fire him now. By the way, have you looked at that coaching staff that the Jags have?
Have I looked at it?
Yes.
I don't think so.
There is not one candidate on that coaching staff to be an interim head coach. Charlie Strong would be the most likely guy. Mm-hmm. Charlie Strong has almost no NFL experience. He's got head coaching experience. It's bad, but he's got almost no NFL experience. See, that's the thing. I think Urban kind of likes it that way, doesn't have a former NFL head coach on his staff. I mean, even the most hands-on guy in the world, Vrabel, has 2. And I think they're ultimately going to fire Urban, and I hate it. Because when I told you, you said, do you think he makes it 3 years? I say, yeah, because they're going to get out of it. They can't get out of the money. And I thought, before I saw the video of the fingers in the butt, I thought that this was going to be 2 years with Urban, and at the end of 2 years, he'd be so miserable and they'd be so miserable that they'd mutually agree to something to where Urban doesn't get the full money, but he gets some of the money, and everybody moves on. Now I think the Jags have Urban over the barrel and are just going to change his contract and kind of do it how they want to do it. I do want to get to something, though, that does bother me. But first, let me tell you that join us in partnering with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society's Light the Night. Light the Night brings light to the darkness of cancer through hope, research, and support for patients and families. Through this inspirational nationwide movement, we raise awareness and funding for groundbreaking research and treatment options to eliminate cancer. Nashville's Light the Night will be virtual and take place on November 4th. Learn more at lightthenight.org/TN. So, Dan Orlovsky, who I find to be just an incredible phony. People that work with him say that he's a great guy, and he might be. I don't know him very well, but I find him to be an incredible, just a fraud. He goes on television, and he acts like what he's doing is he's taking the Skip Bayless method of hot takes, strong opinions, but he's putting it behind the guise of, I'm a quarterback who watches all the film in the world, so I know. And I just find that to be phony. I mean, it's good for you to be on TV more, but I don't think what you're selling to the viewership is not what you are. I'm not going to come on here and try to talk to you about schemes. Joe Rexrode was texting me today about the Titans offensive line and was like, watch the tape. And I'm like, no, because you don't even know what you're looking at when you watch tape. Don't tell me to watch tape. You don't know. He does not know what he looks at if he watches the tape. I know this because I worked with somebody who did know what they were looking at when they watched the tape. So anywho, Dan Orlovsky, in response to the Urban Meyer controversy, said this.
Marcus, you mentioned Trevor Lawrence, the young quarterback. I want to put myself in his shoes and talk to Coach Urban Meyer as the coach. It's hard for you to lead me when you can't lead yourself. How can I sit here in the locker room and listen to you preach about culture when you do things like this? My success is incredibly dependent on your ability to lead our organization. And if you can't lead yourself to make consistently the proper decisions, then how can I trust my career with you? How can I trust that you're going to do what's best for me and all of my teammates? I don't want to sit in the locker room and listen to you talk about doing the right things. I don't want to sit in the locker room and hear you preach about culture and changing things. To your point, we're 0-4. We're 0-4, and you want me to constantly do the right things when you can't? I agree. I don't want you as my head coach anymore.
The players in Jacksonville do not care about that. The idea of, you would go out there and you would go be seen in public with your fingers in that girl's rear end. How dare you, coach, and how can you tell me to do the right things when you can't do the... Those players don't care. Here's what the players don't like. The players don't like it when you bring in a racist strength coach. They don't like it when you bring in Tim Tebow and then everybody starts talking about it when you know that Tim Tebow stinks. Like, that's what the players don't like. The idea of this video getting out and the players being upset about it, Dan Orlovsky knows better than that. Like, maybe there's some players in the locker room that are like really religious or something that might, have like a problem with it. But I don't think you can play in the NFL if you're worried about the morals of everybody else. And I can tell you, most of the guys in the NFL do not care what you do with your family and your personal life. So when I see Dan Orlovsky say that, like, that was pearl clutching right there. And when I see if I'm a player, how can I listen to you when you say, dude, pipe down. You played with players. You were a quarterback in the NFL. You knew that there was a player in the offense that you were in the meetings with, that you had to trust in, that you had to be friends with, that you knew had like 6 mistresses. I know it because at least one of those 53 guys that you played with is like that. And so I hear that and I'm just like, okay, Dan. And that just, I don't know, it bothers me. We can all make fun of Urban. The being offended because Urban's married thing does not fly with me because this is the NFL.
Well, I'm not going to count out the idea that there may be some players in that locker room that are disappointed, that are annoyed that not only are they 0-4, but the entire conversation surrounding the Jags is this team already felt like a joke, and now it's even more of a joke.
So that would bother me.
Yeah, that would bother me. That's the national conversation about my team, is that my coach is going around drunk, sticking his fingers where they're not supposed to be and dancing on girls. That would annoy me. It would annoy me that my coach is preaching. He said it in his press conference today. I told Trevor when he went on his bachelor trip, you got to.
By the way, way to bring Trevor into this discussion.
Leave Trevor out. Trevor did not force feed you alcohol. So I mean, the whole idea of you got to do what's best for the football team. Don't do anything to hurt the football team. Taking words from Meg Vrabel, that would frustrate me that my coach is out there doing those things, and whenever he's preaching to do the opposite to me, now that would frustrate me. But to your point, I don't think the players care what Urban Meyer does in his spare time.
You can't be in the NFL and worry about stuff.
It's unfortunate when it becomes headlines on every national news source and sports news source in the country. Now, that's frustrating. I don't think they care what he does with or without his wife. But I think they care when it starts affecting them. And I think at this point, it's starting to affect them.
See, I'm not even sure the players care, though, that the national discussion is that they're a joke. They've lost 19 in a row.
Yeah.
This isn't something new. But the idea that the Jacksonville Jaguars are a joke is not something new to even the people who play for the Jacksonville
Even
Jaguars.
though it's not new, doesn't make it any less frustrating.
On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the most mad the players could be. So a 10 would be like when it came out that Cal McNair or Bob McNair, the old owner of the Texans, when he came out and said that he didn't want the inmates running the prison in reference to them setting the rules for kneeling during the national anthem. And that got out, and like players were legitimately about to boycott it, or like reported last week that when Belichick wrote that letter to Donald Trump and Trump read it at his New Hampshire rally in 2016, that players told Brian Flores, hey, we don't want to play. If that's a 10, on a scale of 1 to 10, how mad do you think the players are about this video? Like the idea of Urban running around on his wife or Urban getting drunk or Urban any of that.
Like maybe a 2.
Okay. How mad do you think they were when he hired the racist strength coach from Iowa?
I would say like an 8.
Okay.
Because
when he signed Tim Tebow.
Probably an 8 or 9.
Okay. Because so you see what I'm saying, though? Like, the players don't care about this.
And those things directly affect the players because that's the guy that they're going to be working out with. That's the guy that's going to be in their locker room.
Those are disrespectful to the players.
Yes.
Those are disrespectful. You bring in this racist strength coach, you're saying, hey, screw you guys. I'm bringing this guy in even though he hates y'all. That's what that's saying. Mm-hmm. And then when you bring in Tim Tebow, it's disrespectful to the players because it's like, I mean, you don't think that we can play.
And we've worked our butts off training the past X number of years.
So you're bringing this guy in who tried to play baseball. Like, it's
who's on TV.
Just disrespectful. So those bother the players. This whole thing, I mean, they don't care about it. Now, I do think that it probably affects the players and Urban from this standpoint. He probably has no credibility with them and probably has no shot at getting it back. And this all goes back into, this is why I'm worried that the Jags are going to fire Urban and go find a good coach. Here's what's crazy about Jacksonville. I was thinking about this today. Like, I think Mike Mularkey was a pretty good coach. A lot of people around here didn't like Mike Mularkey, and I thought it wasn't fair. Like, they didn't like him because he was 18 and 36 or whatever in Buffalo and Jacksonville before he got here. But he had 1 year in Jacksonville. Shad Khan bought the team, brought in Dave Caldwell to be GM, and Dave Caldwell fired him. And I didn't think that was fair to judge Mike Mularkey on 1 year with Blaine Gabbert as his quarterback to say, well, this guy can't coach. So I, decided I gave Mike a clean slate because a lot of football people were telling me Mike was a good coach. So I watched it. Oh, Mike did a good job. I mean, I think you can have a legitimate argument, and I'm not going to go there today, but I think you can have a legitimate argument that Mike Mularkey is better at a lot of things than Mike Vrabel is. Vrabel's probably better at some things than Mike Mularkey is. But anywho, I think they're the same level coach. I think they're good coaches. Think about all the coaches they've had since Mike Mularkey. They had Gus Bradley, and that was just a disaster. Then they fire him, and they stick with Doug Marrone, and they win a little bit with Doug Marrone. But then, Coughlin comes in, and he ruins everything. And now they got Urban, and it's like, if the Jags were to hire Mike Mularkey today. Now, Mike's an old school guy, and I don't think you hire old school guys that have been out of the game for a couple of years. But if they were to hire a coach the caliber of Mike Mularkey, which again, to me is not a great coach, not a Hall of Fame coach, he's not one of the better coaches in the league, but he's a good coach. If Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence were to hire that coach, I'd be worried. Like a no-nonsense football coach, I'd be worried. But if they keep hiring these crazies, I'm fine with it. So whoever the next offensive guru, who's the hot offensive guru who's out there, other than Bieniemy, who I don't think should ever leave that job because as soon as Andy steps away, he's going to get the Kansas City job.
Joe Brady.
Is he considered an offensive guru in the NFL circles? Yeah.
Probably not in the NFL circles, no.
I mean, LSU's just going to offer him the bank at the end of this year, right?
They probably should.
Okay.
Yes.
So, Kellen Moore?
Maybe, yeah.
I actually talked to an old school coach yesterday who does not think Kellen Moore is going to be a good coach. And I kind of laughed about it because Kellen Moore's getting hired.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Kellen Moore is going to be a head coach after this year. And he might be good. I don't know. If Jacksonville hires Kellen Moore, I would feel better about that than if they went out and hired just put the laminated play sheet in his shorts ball coach.
Like bona fide football coach.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like a legitimately good, organized coach. That would scare me if Jacksonville did that. They go hire some guru who wants to throw it 55 times a game with a second-year quarterback, knock yourself out. Keep changing coordinators on him, keep blaming everyone, yep, here you go. I'm fine with that. 615-737-1025. We'll get to your text and call 615-737-1025, the Urban Drama. It's just too good. Like, it's just too good. It's too juicy.
It's like I told you, I feel like the world has just gift wrapped us this sweet little nugget of information.
And it's Titans week.
It's Titans week. Perfect timing.
I heard Chase when we were driving in. I heard Chase and Ryan talking about the game, and I heard them saying, this feels like a game they should hammer them, but I don't need to talk. Like, I don't need to talk at length about, this game, and it's Tuesday, and the game's on Sunday. Titans ought to beat Jacksonville by like 30 points. 615-737-1025. To your text next. It's ESPN 1025, the game. Stillman Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, ESPN 102.5 The Game. Let me tell all the fine folks out there, 102.5 The Game has your chance to win Preds tickets during the month of October. Just post a picture of your radio dial set to 102.5 The Game on social media, Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. Tag the game and use the hashtag TicketDash to be qualified instantly to win. Show us your dash. Brought to you by Social Furniture. Shop local. Shop social. You know I love Social Furniture. By the way, before we get to the phones on this, and phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com, do you have any problem with the Urban Meyer thing from like a morality standpoint?
I mean, it's not a good look. I mean, I'm not going to say, oh, Urban Meyer is,
it just affirms the fact that you think he's a
guy.
trash.
I mean, yeah, I've always thought that he was kind of an a-hole. You are where you put your fingers. I've never really been a fan of Urban Meyer. This doesn't change my mind and by any means. This just kind of solidifies the fact that I just don't think he's that great of a guy.
This sounds like such a miserable person.
I mean, I've just always just thought like, oh, just what an annoying person.
He has always put off the vibe of just like a miserable person. Let's get to your phones. Text line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. What do we have?
Ben was texted into the text line and said, imagine if the Jaguars got a real coach to help Trevor Lawrence build a dynasty for the next decade. This could be horrible news for the Titans long term. I would rather they kept Urban.
Okay, so I'm with the texter about the idea of hoping that they wish that they could keep Urban. Joe Rexroad apparently tweeted something that Ian just laughed about, and now I got to go look at it.
He was responding to Caroline's tweet. It was in response to his daughter, Caroline.
Yes.
So it was pretty funny.
I tweeted, I said, I never thought I'd say fingers in her butt at all on the radio, much less the number of times that I've said it today. And Joe said, my Caroline, his daughter, was very confused as I drove her home from school. I decided to not explain and to hope she forgets. This is like one of those things where like she like the teacher calls home and she's like, Caroline has been saying fingers and butt a lot today. I want to know if there's anything going on at home, what you guys have been listening to.
Well, Caroline Rexroad, since your dad won't explain this to you, let me go ahead and be the one to do this. So, when a man is at the bar and he's had too many drinks.
After a man's gotten dinner with his grandchildren.
And they ask him to take some pictures and he accidentally gets pushed out on the dance floor, according to him, that he, and he shouldn't have done it. And it was selfish, and it was stupid, and it was dumb. And then he just apparently goes home and goes to bed at night with his wife and his grandkids. But when that man is lying about what actually happened, and there's another video that shows a 24-year-old blonde dancing on him, and then he puts his fingers on the hemming of the seam of the G-string seam of the jeans.
Is that what it's called? Is that the fashion technical term?
What do you want to call
that?
It's
like the two sides
the
of the
butt crack
jeans.
line of the jeans, and he puts his two fingers. Somebody said he used a thumb. I didn't see a thumb in there.
It seems like he's done it. He's done this before. This is not the first time.
I heard somebody earlier today mention a thumb. I thought I saw index and middle. That's what I thought I saw from Urban.
How many times did you watch this video?
Like 3 or 4.
100?
No. You'd be surprised that watching Urban try to do that at a bar is
after
not
a while
it
starts to get a little gross.
It is funny though. I mean, I'll tell you what. I didn't watch the press conference video until after. I didn't watch a press conference video until after we did the show yesterday. So after I had seen the video, I thought the press conference video was way funnier than anything else.
Oh, because he didn't look up once. Like, you could tell.
He's got like $100 billion, and he's just a total chotch, and he's just such a loser. Like, he can't look at the people and say, hey, I was at the bar, I drank a little bit too much, and I got too flirtatious, and I'm really sorry, and I shouldn't have done it, and I feel like an idiot, and my family thinks I'm an idiot, and I have to deal with that, and I'm really sorry to everybody, and I promise that it won't happen again, and I'm really sorry. Instead, you do that. You are one step short of Bobby Petrino in the neck.
Shouldn't have done it.
Oh, my goodness.
His head was down. He looked.
We celebrate this today because it's funny. When Jacksonville fires him because of this and gets a good coach, then we got to be worried. That's the one thing I'll say. Like, if Jacksonville ever gets their head out of their rear end, which apparently has been the topic of discussion today, and they hire a good coach with Trevor Lawrence at quarterback, they now become the team to be worried about in the AFC South. Like from the grand scheme, big picture kind of thing. What else we got?
Well, Keith texts in response to us talking about how the players may
Sure.
digest all of this and says Trevor Lawrence is very religious. That is true. Trevor Lawrence is a pretty religious person, and I don't know how that would potentially impact their relationship.
So the thing about the football locker room that I always thought was kind of interesting was, like, when I covered sports in Boston, right? Like the Celtics, like there's a certain demographic. And again, not to say that everybody fits into a demographic, but like hockey, there's a certain demographic of player. And I used to think about this with like body type. You know, hockey, they were all short and skinny. Basketball, they were all tall and skinny. Baseball, they were all, for the most part, kind of had bodies like me. Football, they got every kind of body in there. They got skinny guys with muscle. They got big jacked guys. They got big fat guys. They got, I mean, any team you can have Jeffrey Simmons over here and Khalif Raymond over there and Randy Bullock over here. And it's just every kind of body
Rodrigo
type.
Blankenship and DK Metcalf play the same sport.
I think that, you know, as far as like the way, like, you know, religion and like, I think that football's the most diverse, you know, in the locker room because so many people come from so many different backgrounds. I just don't think you can play in the NFL if your morals are so strong that you're offended by somebody else every time this happens. I don't think you can play in the NFL. Like, that if it's so strong that, you know, you harbor resentment over somebody running around on their wife, I don't think you can play in the NFL. So, like, this isn't the first time that there's somebody that has been a part of Trevor's football career who has done something like this and Trevor's found out about it. You just can't do it. And so, I mean, yeah, again, he may be very religious and he may be bothered by this, but I don't think he's bothered to where it affects his football.
And I'm also not going to tell someone how they should feel about it, because how they feel about it is however they choose to feel about it. Whatever their moral beliefs are, that's what they want to believe. But to your point, you know, this is a league where a lot of people come from a lot of different backgrounds.
Yeah,
or maybe,
dudes cheat.
Yes. People do bad things in the NFL. People do bad things not in the NFL.
Sure.
People do good things when they're in the NFL.
But, like, if you can't be, like, you're going to be on a team with a dude that, like, is involved in domestic issues, you know? If you're in the NFL. You're going to be, like, if you're a Titan, you're on the same team with Rashad Weaver. Like, you are.
Yeah.
You know, it happened.
I mean, it's the case
are.
in any other job in the world. People have made mistakes and done bad things in their past.
Sure, and I'll be the first to say I'm not perfect. I mean, I am not perfect now, and I have never tried to be. And I told you before the show, I go, the one thing that I feel comfortable about is the way that I kind of act for the most part, that if I screw something up, I'm going to be honest with people, and I'm going to say, hey, yeah, I did this. I shouldn't have done it. I'm really sorry. So I hope you forgive me, you know, like, but I'm not going to sit there and be like, yeah, we're just, you know, was out there having a couple of drinks and then they wanted to take pictures and then they wanted to get me out there on the dance floor. It was just selfish and stupid. And I just, you know, just shouldn't have. Do you know what the thing the football people are most offended about with this? That Urban didn't fly home with the team.
Really?
Yeah. And I didn't think about that until I've heard it like from like a bunch of different people that either like played or coached that are like, we have never heard of the coach not flying back on the plane with the team.
Is this the first instance of Urban in Jacksonville, at least? Or does he ever fly back with the team?
I mean, I don't think any of us knew that he didn't fly back with the team if this video doesn't come out.
That's probably true, yeah.
I don't know what the rules are for flying back with the team or not flying back with the team or something like that. In fact,
it feels just very weak.
I asked the question on Twitter today. I'm like, could you imagine Floyd like tackling this topic on the radio? And I do think like if it is like a no-no for the coach to not fly back with the team, that would be something that he would get worked up about. You know, the whole like fingers in the butt, like he's not going to care about that. Like he would laugh about it.
Do whatever you want to do on your own time.
He would laugh about it off the air. He probably wouldn't really comment on it on the air. But I think he'd be mad like from the standpoint of like, you are a head coach in an NFL. You know, something like that. But I think that like if not flying home with the team is like a no-no, then that would have been something that bothered him. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. We got a bunch of your texts that we'll still get to on this one, 615-737-1025. So I do have a question, though, about the Titans I want to get to, and I guess we'll do that coming up next. Stillman and Company right here again. We are delivered by TriStar Moving. Do you want to win a pair of tickets to see Daughtry at Ryman Auditorium on November 3rd? Head over to YouTube and subscribe to the 1025 The Game YouTube page, and you'll enter for your chance to see Daughtry. Once you subscribe, email us at promotions@cromwellmedia.com with your YouTube handle. One winner will be chosen on Monday, October 11th. By the way, people subscribing to YouTube, I don't think people know this yet, that is part of Caroline Fenton's job.
It is.
So if you want to make Caroline Fenton happy today, then you need to go subscribe to our 1025 The Game YouTube page. Fair?
That is very fair. Thank you for that.
So if you don't subscribe to the YouTube page, you're really saying screw you to Caroline Fenton.
Pretty much.
And who wants to do that?
I wouldn't appreciate it.
This woman has the just terribly exciting experience in life to get to work with me. So why can't we make her life just a little bit better too?
And to all the people out there who have said, I am so sorry that you have to work with Jared Stillman.
They're just jealous.
To that I say, well then, do you really mean it? How sorry are you?
So you can subscribe to the
YouTube page.
Stillman and Company, it's ESPN 1025 The Game. Stillman Academy, be able to support Stars. That's right, our friends at Stars. They do a great job, by the way. Support Stars on Saturday, October 16th by running, walking, or boogieing the Nashville Striders' 21st annual Shelby Bottoms Boogie 15K and 5K run/walk at Shelby Bottoms Park. The event is perfect for the avid runner as well as the casual jogger, or show your support and participate virtually. For more information, visit starsnashville.org. So we'll get to your urban stuff in just a second, but I do wonder this. Are Titan fans over the Jets loss yet? Like yesterday, oh my goodness, people were upset. And I told you that this was, I don't want to say inevitable, but the way things were trending, it felt to me as if they were likely to probably lose on Sunday. And then they did. And then I ripped everybody's rear end yesterday who needed it. I think John Robinson needed a nice little rear end tearing. I think Mike Vrabel needed a nice little spanking. I think Tannehill needed a spanking. Now, I didn't expect to complain about Tannehill as much as I did yesterday. I think people kind of perpetuated or propelled me to, talk more about Tannehill. But do you think that Titan fans are now over the Jets game and willing and able to move on? Because the one thing I will say, the reason that you lost the Jets game still kind of exists. And there are big expectations for this season. And I don't know if y'all saw that kid for the Chargers last night, but we were discussing before the season whether or not to add them onto the list of teams to be worried about. I'd say go ahead and add them. I'd say add the Chargers. Now, the Raiders I'm not worried about. But I think now, I look at the AFC, Kansas City, Buffalo, Baltimore, Cleveland, Chargers, Titans. That's it.
And, well, there was a list that came out at the beginning of the season predicting postseason, and they had the Titans losing to the Chargers in the first round of the playoffs. And at this point, I'm not going to say that I'm going to put some money on it, that I'm going to bet on it, but that wouldn't be the craziest scenario where things stand right now. Now, you asked if Titans fans are over the Jets loss.
Yes.
I think they're over it in the fact that they're just ready to move on to Jacksonville, just ready to see a little bit more and to, just have this loss in the rearview mirror.
Sure.
But I also do think that this Jets loss has sobered a lot of Titans fans.
Oh, yes. Like the ones that were texting to Robbie and Rexroad all last week saying, they don't need to play anybody to beat the Jets. Like, maybe not.
And
maybe change the tune a little bit.
And I think it was so easy to forget about the Arizona game. Whenever you go into Seattle, get a win against Indianapolis, it's easy to forget about how terrible the offensive line was against Arizona. And then it was just another reminder against the Jets, a team that's incredibly bad. Because you could look at that Arizona game and say, well, look, they're the only undefeated team in the league. Maybe they're just that good. The Jets are not that good. So I think that while Titans fans have been able to move forward, I think that they have learned a little bit more about this team, maybe not in a not very good way.
Back to your urban text, 615-737-1025.
Curtis from Bucks Nation texts in and says, I didn't think about that not flying home with a team thing, mostly because his family still lives in Ohio.
Yeah, I just don't know what the rules are in the NFL.
I don't know.
This is a year ago, we'd know every rule about flying on planes in the NFL. Obviously, we don't know this now. Just the amount of people that play in the NFL, because I saw Pat McAfee on SiriusXM, and he was just stunned, beside himself, that Urban would not fly home with the team. And I think Michael Lombardi tweeted out today, former NFL general manager, and he said he had never seen a coach not fly home with the team. And I never really thought about it. I figured just most coaches just fly home with the team because that's what coaches do.
Right.
They just fly home with the team. So maybe another red flag that this ain't college, Urban. You can't lie to us and say, oh, well, I got to go see this kid out in, Pocono to go see if he wants to be the next flanker at Ohio State. This is the NFL. And so Urban, I think, is having a hard time with learning the fact that this is the NFL. And since he's in charge of the organization, which is also stupid, because of that, this is how you end up in the situation that they're in. Coming up next, speaking of the NFL, I talked to a couple NFL coaches. And I asked about the Titans' offensive line problems. Because everybody seems to have a different opinion about why the Titans gave up 7 sacks on Sunday. So I talked to some former NFL coaches, offensive coaches, and I said, what do you think? I'll tell you what they told me next. Stillman and Company, it's ESPN 102.5 The Game. Stillman & Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, ESPN 102.5 The Game. We are streaming on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube thanks to the law offices of Amanda Gentry. Wild college football weekend. Trevor Maddich in less than 30 minutes. So I want to share a couple of conversations that I had. I talked to some former NFL offensive coordinators yesterday, one of whom was a head coach. And I said, because I'm so tired of, like, the one thing about football is with every sport, most people that watch the sport don't actually know a whole lot about the sport, which is kind of how most things are in life, right? Mm-hmm. Like I tell people about Hiller every single day. Those guys come out to my house at Hiller whenever there's something wrong, and I have no idea what they're talking about. Like, oh, yeah, the water line right here connects inside down the crawl space. This cuts through the – I have no clue. And every time they ask me a question, it's like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I moved in November of last year. I mean, I don't – there's some manuals over there. Like, I don't know. And – sometimes I think we got to remember that's pretty much everybody's job. Like, we love to get on there and complain about, like, you know, everybody's job, and you don't really know a whole lot about their jobs. And so everybody's talking about the protection issues that the Titans have. And everybody's got different people to blame, right? Like, there's a big contingency of people that just hate Taylor Lewan. Mm-hmm. So he's, you know, right there. There's a lot of people that are blaming, you know, the fact that Quessenberry's probably a replacement level right tackle. There's a lot of people blaming Todd Downing. You know, I think Downing, there's a big bunch of people that are blaming Downing. And I said yesterday, I think Tannehill is part of the problem as far as the protection on Sunday is concerned. Either the ball's got to come out faster, he's got to read the defense better, he's got to check out of plays, he's got all these things. And I think they're all applicable. So the only person that really knows, or the only people that really know, why there were breakdowns in protection are not going to tell you. Mike Vrabel yesterday was asked about protections a bunch and how they gave up 7 sacks, and listened to his answer knowing that he's not going to tell you.
After watching film, what were the biggest issues that resulted in 7 quarterback sacks?
Well, you know, again, there's 3 processes, you know, to a pass game. You know, it's about getting open. It's about recognizing man and zone, running the correct route. It's about protection holding up, and it's about the quarterback getting rid of the football and getting it to somebody quickly. And I would say all 3 of those. You know, when the protection, you know, when the quarterback starts to get hit, you know, then he wants to start to get rid of the ball sooner. And then maybe guys aren't open as quickly, and so it's just this process, and we need everybody to come together like we do when we have successful plays. You see that there's protection, or there's guys blocking, and you know we're able to gain yards in a run game, or we're able to get it going on a screen that gets it started, and there's extra effort blocks down the field. So hopefully we can, you know, tie that all into the pass game and not get our quarterback hit and be able to make some plays there.
He's not going to tell you. Mm-mm. He's not going to tell you. And everybody's wanting to blame one person or blame this or blame that. Here's what the 2 coaches told me. One coach made it abundantly clear to me that he doesn't like Quessenberry on the right side. And he said, you don't understand. In the NFL, you think you've got a left guard, that you can just move that left guard to right guard, and that could be a seamless transition. He's a guard. And the coach told me, that's not how that works. Like, a lot of people say it that way, and when you're a down-the-line guy, you got to be able to move around and play multiple spots. But that if you have a guy last year who was your left tackle, and now you're telling him to play right tackle, it's totally different job, position, etc. And I am reminded of being in here with Floyd one time talking about Jack Conklin and bringing up the possibility of letting Taylor Lewan go one time and moving Conklin over to left tackle. Conklin was drafted as a left tackle out of Michigan State, and Floyd just looked at me and goes, Jack's a right tackle. I was like, but you could. He goes, nope, he's a right tackle. And I think that was kind of his way of saying whatever he could see about it, he knew Conklin's better on the right side. Cleveland paid him all this money. He's still on the right side. So that was one of the things, is one of the coaches didn't like Quessenberry at right tackle because moving him from left to right last year and what that meant. Another coach told me that it is impossible for you to figure out what the breakdown in protection is when you give up 7 sacks in a game and be able to pin it on 1 or 2 things. And I think Vrabel alluded to it in that clip right there, because the coach told me, he said, quarterback can go up to the line of scrimmage. And when you see a quarterback blow up on a wide receiver for a miscommunication, sometimes that is that the wide receiver did not read the coverage effectively, and that can blow your entire protection. So we can watch a play where a guy gets sacked, and we can say, oh, well, they didn't pick up this guy, and it could be the flanker's fault because he didn't recognize what the coverage was, and thus he reacted a certain way, and because of his reaction with other reactions, that's an issue. The coach also told me Derrick Henry in pass protection. Derrick looks better in the pass game. You need Derrick on the field to be a decoy for the defense. The first sack they gave up, Quessenberry got beat on the outside. Derrick got beat up the middle, missed his assignment. They sacked Tannehill. Derrick Henry in pass protection for this coach that I talked to is still a concern. So that was one thing they wanted to point out. But that it's impossible to sit there and judge, unless it's just a guy gets beat off the edge, it's impossible to judge, okay, where did the breakdown come? The quarterback is very responsible. The coordinator, that this former NFL offensive coordinator told me, the coordinator is very much a part of this. It was kind of the way the coach told me that it really can be everybody's fault at one time. Like, it really can be the whole unit's fault. And so if I want to say it's Tannehill's fault and you say, well, it's not Tannehill's fault, well, it is Tannehill's fault. But it's also everybody else's fault. Then another coach told me this. And the coach knows the Titans very well. Mm-hmm. And this coach told me that he believes Ryan Tannehill's resurgence was based upon Arthur Smith looking at Ryan Tannehill and figuring out how best to use Ryan Tannehill. The one thing that coach told me was Arthur did things with Tannehill that protected him from himself. And when I think about Tannehill in Miami, I think about a guy who turned the ball over a little bit. And I didn't watch a lot of Tannehill in Miami. But I think about a guy who turned the ball over a little bit, tried to chuck it down the field, got injured every now and then, just really wasn't a week-to-week effective passer. Then he comes in here and he's as efficient as Joe Montana. And it's like, well, how did that happen? And that coach told me he believes Arthur took Ryan Tannehill, took the good in Ryan Tannehill and kind of amplified it, and took the bad in Ryan Tannehill and kind of kept that away. And that was in my head a lot today, thinking about, okay, when people get down on Todd Downing, is this the thing that he's missing? Is that he is not able to set Tannehill up effectively the way that Arthur Smith was. And I can't give you specifics of what that coach told me, because all the coach told me was, when Marcus was here, they could win games, but Marcus was a backup. That coach believed, to me, that he thought Mariota was a backup quarterback. And then Tannehill came in here, and that Vrabel and the staff, they were lucky enough to make the deal with Tannehill to have him come in here, but that it was Arthur who knew the limitations of Ryan Tannehill and worked around them. And I thought that was very telling when I asked a coach yesterday about Tannehill or about the protections and the problems, and he said Arthur put Tannehill in position to succeed unlike any coach has ever done. And I think Arthur's a great coach, so that wouldn't surprise me. And then the other thing that a coach told me yesterday was, because I was kind of talking about, how much of it's Tannehill's fault, how much of it's Downing's fault, how much of it's the offensive line's fault, how much of it. And the coach told me, whatever you say about Ryan Tannehill, don't forget about the Seattle game. And I said, what did you mean? And he said, I've been to every stadium in the NFL. I've coached in the box. I've coached on the field. I've coached, he goes, I've been to every stadium in the NFL. Seattle is the only place in the box where you can't hear the coach next to you, where you have the headset on and you can't hear the coaches because it is so loud in Seattle. And so he said, for them to come back in that game in the fourth quarter and in overtime, Ryan Tannehill had to have everybody on the same page. And I was like, I guess that makes sense. And he was like, no, you don't understand Seattle. So you don't understand how difficult that was for Ryan Tannehill to have the game that he had at Seattle. Now, he wasn't talking at all about yesterday's game. I don't even know if he watched yesterday's game. But he was talking about the Seattle game. And I was like, wow. I never thought about it like that. Like, we praised Tannehill for his performance against Seattle, but we never praised it like that. And so that was one thing that he said. And then the final thing the coach said was, what you can't do is you can't do the not practicing. He goes, because when you don't practice, then you don't gel together. Then you're trying to gel together in the middle of a season. And I don't care if it's one new guy or if it's guys that have played together, but it takes time for the offensive line to gel. It takes time for the guys to get together. So this is my way of saying that I talked to a couple of coaches in the NFL. Both were former offensive coordinators. One was a head coach. And they're telling me all these different things all over the place about the protections with the Titans. Which is my long-winded way of telling you all that if you hear somebody say, this is what's wrong, they don't know. Because these former coaches have ideas, and they know a lot more about the Titans than everybody else does. And they have ideas, and each idea that I heard, I'm like, that makes sense. But there's a lot of different theories and ideas that are playing here into the protection. So I was one a couple years ago that wanted to fire Keith Carter when every game for the first 2 months of the year was like Sunday. And I still, I took that, but, Keith Carter got that group together at the end of 2019, and I thought he had earned, the first coach I can remember that has earned a retraction of losing his job from me. Now, I'm still not a huge Keith Carter fan. I mean, he's certainly not Mike Munchak. He's certainly not a good offensive line coach, but there's a difference between being good and being fired. But, there's a lot that goes into it. And it is complicated. And that's my way of saying to people, you may want to think it's Lawan and say, get rid of Lawan and it'll be better. You may want to say, like yesterday, how I'm talking about Tannehill's got to get the ball out faster. Tannehill's got to change play at the line. You may want to do that. And maybe that's part of it, but it's not totally it. You may want to blame Downing, but nobody knows. And the people who do know will not tell you. I'm talking to coaches. So the people that do know will not tell you. And I'm talking about coaches that are respected. And they don't know.
And I think it's even a bigger problem, too, that it's not just one thing. It's not just, it's this guy in the offensive line. We feel like it's the offensive coordinator's issue for not tailoring to Tannehill's strengths, as you mentioned. The fact that there are multiple guys, former coaches, who know the Titans very well, who have so many different ideas of what could possibly be wrong. I think that is the bigger problem here, that there is no one glaring issue, that it could potentially be a lot of things.
I think the one thing that stood out to me throughout the whole thing was I do wonder if, when we talk about Tannehill's decision-making, if Arthur gave Tannehill options and took the bad decisions off the menu. And so everything that Tannehill picked from last year were to set him up to make good decisions. And that maybe Downing doesn't do that as well as Arthur did. I do wonder that. When a coach said to me, hey, Arthur was, Tannehill was fine in Miami. Arthur, what he did with Tannehill, that was, and I was like, oh, wow. I mean, went out of his way to make sure that I knew that he thought Arthur was the most responsible for Tannehill's resurgence. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Joe Rexrode made me mad today about the Titans' offensive line. So I want to get to that next. And that's exactly what we will do. 615-737-1025 here on Stillman and Company. Let me tell all the fine folks out there. Let me tell them. Tune into the NFL Game of the Week on 102.5 The Game, brought to you by Red Spirits and Wine in Bellevue. The Game of the Week this Sunday, the Cleveland Browns and the Los Angeles Chargers kickoff at 3:05. Stillman and Company, it's ESPN 102.5 The Game.
Especially on the right side, this may go to what you just said, but was it more just kind of losing some battles on that right side in terms of the pass rush, or were they doing a lot of stunts and games, that kind of stuff?
Well, that's all part of it. I mean, they brought pressure. We got to do a better job picking up pressure when somebody drops out and somebody else comes. Staying inside, things we're always going to teach, and being firm in the middle of the pocket and trying to get some certain width to it so that the quarterback can operate. And those are all things that we got to improve on. And when they pick, and we got to come back and make sure we're flattening off the penetrator. Those fundamental things that when they run a pick game, that there's no penetration and that you flatten it out, or if we're chipping, to be able to use our chip help and not set too deep and all those different things.
That was Mike Vrabel talking about the pressure on Sunday. And I will say this, I do wonder if we're going to see more backs and receivers stay in the pattern. Out of the pattern and in protecting for Ryan Tannehill going forward. But I do want to say Joe Rexrode may be mad today, and then we'll get right to the phones because we got Trevor coming up.
That is nothing new.
Well, so I was listening to, I think I texted Joe. I think I was listening to them. I don't know. I ended up having to take somebody's kids to school today. So, it was just a whole long, drawn-out process. So I didn't get my normal day of listening at length to Robbie and Rexrode.
Because talking about Urban Meyer's sexual endeavors really is an everyday kind of thing.
Yes. So, he said, so Joe said, Joe started about basketball today.
Shocker.
And I said, Floyd and I used to laugh when you'd go out of your way to talk about basketball, or, if one of us heard something else that I'm not going to mention in this discussion. But we used to laugh. Oh, my goodness, did we used to laugh. Joe goes, I heard 5 minutes of your show yesterday. Okay, Joe. I heard Joe probably bought the Wi-Fi on his flight back from New York so that he could listen to all, for the 2 hours he was in the air, he could listen to Stillman and Company. He goes, I heard 5 minutes of your show yesterday, and you said this offensive line has been bad at pass protection all along. Do you even watch this team play? That's astounding. Last year, before Lawan went down, it was basically the best pass-blocking offensive line in the league. Still only gave up 25 sacks all year. My God, man. Now, you heard a podcast from 2 years ago, before the Titans played the Chiefs, in which I asked Floyd if Ryan Tannehill could go out there and throw Mahomes and beat the Chiefs. And what was Floyd's biggest concern?
The offensive line.
Protection in the passing game. And he just said, there's no way they could do that. So I don't want to hear Joe tell me, last year before Lawan got hurt. Before Lawan got hurt, they played the Broncos without Von Miller. They played the Jaguars. They played the Vikings. And they played the Steelers. And the Steelers ate them alive in the first half. Ate them alive. So I don't want to hear this idea of 2 years ago they played the Saints. And those bad boys on the defensive line, Onyemata and Sheldon Rankins, who they had to play last week with the Jets, they just embarrassed Demario
Davis.
Yeah, they just ate Lawan and Conklin apart. And that was 2 years ago, 2019. And that was the game that Derrick Henry didn't play. So the truth is, when the Titans find themselves in passing situations where they have to throw the ball, if another team has a good defensive front, and the Jets do have a good defensive front, if the other team has that, they're coming. And they're going to get there if the ball doesn't come out quickly. And if you don't have NFL receivers out there, they're not going to get open off the press. And if they don't get open off the press, Tannehill's not going to have anywhere to throw the ball. So guess what happens? You lose. So something has to change across the whole because once a team gets 2 or 3 sacks like that, they smell blood in the water. They're coming every time. It's like the 9 sacks the Ravens had a couple of years ago.
And we saw Tannehill, after every single sack, get a little bit more nervous, a little bit more nervous.
Ian said it yesterday.
A little bit more happy feet. Yeah, he had a happy feet.
Mariota. Lance, phone line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Lance, kick us off this hour. Go ahead.
Hey, I personally think that Tannehill did everything he could do to win that game. The problem is I don't think it'd be one thing would have happened, just one thing. If Fisher would have caught that football, Ryan Tannehill would have been the greatest quarterback of the day. So And then earlier in the game, I think that Josh Reynolds dropped one that should have been cut too. So there you go.
Thank you for your call. Do you think the Titans have a problem catching the football? Like, do they not practice enough catching the ball?
Well, A.J. Brown
drops ball.
Can't catch the football. Josh Reynolds dropped the football on
Biggest
Sunday.
Drop and grabbed his
that
knee.
could have been the difference between a win and a loss.
Sure, Ferkser.
Ferk dropped the ball.
I mean, this is...
Nick Westbrook-Akina fumbled the ball.
I mean, this
Ryan
is...
Tannehill fumbles the football. I get it. It happens, but I think ball security has shown itself to be a problem for the
What
Titans.
do we have in the text line?
One texter texts in and says bad teams can be bad due to players, coaching, GM, typically some sort of combination, but inconsistent teams are usually inconsistent because of coaching, and the Titans are consistently inconsistent.
So in the NFL, like, if you lose, it's bad coaching. You know, like that's the and every coach knows that. That's why when Vrabel, when they lose, it all starts with me. Got to coach better. Like they know that. But I think my biggest issue with Vrabel's coaching right now is I just don't understand how defensively they can have a busted coverage, give up a touchdown every game.
Mm-hmm.
They're the only team in football that does that. Did you see any busted coverages last night? Guy ran wide open down the field for a touchdown. Guy just popped it lollipop for a touchdown.
No,
I didn't either. So I'm just, like, why does this happen to the Titans every game? Like, can somebody help me out? Can somebody explain to me why this happens to the Titans every single game?
But the problem is, busted coverage, it happened. But to the Titans, it happens every single game.
Every freaking game.
It's the repeated issues of bad pass protection, busted coverage, dropping the football. It's issues that manifest themselves every single Sunday.
So how about the Vols on Saturday? Because they just lit Missouri's tailpipe up.
It was such a fun game, I do have to say.
And Alabama are clearly the best two teams in the country. Trevor Maddich will join us next, ESPN college football analyst. Let me tell you about Invigorate Health. That's right, InvigorateHealthTN.com. Do you feel old? Watching some of these guys out on the field, I think they probably feel a little old. Then you need to talk to my friends at Invigorate Health. At Invigorate Health, they have treatments that will restore your vitality. And it's not just your typical ED treatment, your typical weight loss treatment, your typical testosterone treatment. They got all different kinds of treatments. Whichever one is best for you is the one that they will choose. They have trained physicians and nurses. So go in for a consultation, and maybe it's an IV therapy you need. Maybe it's testosterone, hormone replacement. Maybe it's the M-Sculpt Neo. They're brand new non-invasive procedure that reduces fat right there around the abdomen and increases muscle. I don't know, because it's all about you. But if you're 45, 55, 65, and you want to feel like you're 25 again, talk to my friends at Invigorate Health. InvigorateHealthTN.com. Again, that's Invigorate Health. Restore your vitality with my friends at Invigorate Health, InvigorateHealthTN.com. What a wild weekend of college football. We all kind of thought, we at least discussed on the show, we thought that Georgia was going to blow out Arkansas, and that's exactly what happened, though I didn't expect it to be as dominant as it was. For the first part of that game, they looked like they were playing Vanderbilt still. Then Lane Kiffin talks all of his trash before the game. Alabama absolutely embarrasses Ole Miss on CBS. Meanwhile, Cincinnati gets their biggest win in school history. The Vols absolutely throttle Missouri. Fun fact, by the way, Steve Wilkes, the Missouri defensive coordinator, interviewed for the head coaching position of the Tennessee Titans when they hired Mike Vrabel. Crazy, I know. But with that, Trevor Maddich joins us now, ESPN college football analyst, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. So, Trev, let's start with the obvious. Alabama and Georgia, did they prove this weekend? And forget about rankings, because it's still early in the season. And so these preseason polls, you win some games, and all of a sudden you skyrocket to sixth, and you're really not the sixth best team in the country. Did Alabama and Georgia prove this week, Trevor, that they are by far the two best teams in college football?
Yeah, they absolutely did. They absolutely did. I mean, I have Alabama at number 2 this week because they came back and reestablished the Bama factor. They reestablished dominance in the trenches. This Ole Miss team that they throttled is better than the one that pushed them around a little bit on offense, certainly last year. And yet they came in Alabama and didn't just tackle Ole Miss ball carriers. They threw them to the ground, and they would bounce off the ground. I pitched that as a breakdown idea to SportsCenter. They wanted to go a different direction, but that one was so much fun to watch that on tape going back and looking at that game. The dominance of Alabama in the trenches is something that they haven't really shown this year against the better opponents. So we just take a look at Georgia, their first really true fair fight. And they were okay on offense in the trenches. On defense, they got pushed around. In this game, in another fair fight, they were viciously physical. And so the Bama factor is back. But the reason they're not number 1, Jared, is because Georgia, goodness gracious, Arkansas is legitimately one of the most physical teams in the country, and Georgia treated them like puppy dogs, like a dog that had a mouse or a chipmunk in his jaws, just shaking it around for the sheer pleasure of it. And that's what the Georgia Bulldogs did. And I tell you, the way that they're playing right now is the only way that you can possibly play for a team to be held above Alabama at number 1. And even though the AP has Bama number 1 right now, I have Georgia 1.
And I think there's a lot of people that have Georgia 1 too. And to me, you can pick either team to be number 1, and I wouldn't have a problem with it. What I was thinking about today, Trevor, was I think it's inevitable that they're going to meet in Atlanta and play in the SEC championship game. And if everything goes to plan, and I don't see a team on Alabama's schedule that would beat Alabama before they'd meet, and honestly, I don't see a team on Georgia's schedule that would beat Georgia. I certainly don't think Auburn or Florida, or I don't see them beating Georgia this year. Then both those teams are going to make the playoff if they meet in Atlanta, right?
Yes.
Okay. If I'm Nick Saban or Kirby Smart, do I hold something back in that SEC championship game? I mean, I know Nick Saban and these old school college football people value winning in the SEC and winning an SEC championship more than the average fan probably values an SEC championship. But if you know you're going to play Alabama again in the playoff, or you know there's a really good chance you're going to play them again, wouldn't you want Kirby to give you his best shot, you hold something back, and maybe kind of pick up what Georgia may try to do to you in a national championship game, and then obviously vice versa for Kirby to how he should approach that game too?
I think in a fantasy football situation, you can make a case for that. But these are true cavemen. Kirby Smart and Nick Saban are two of the most competitive people on the planet. And I don't see any way in the world that they would think anything beyond winning the SEC championship. The SEC championship is a huge deal. And Saban has said that it's harder to win the SEC sometimes than it is to win the national championship. Sure, they won the national championship in the year that Georgia won the SEC. They just beat them in the playoff, right? And so I don't think that'll happen. I think that both sides will sell out. Both sides will empty their bench. They'll play injured starters. They'll do everything they need to do in order to win the SEC championship. But I can't imagine that game would be a blowout either way because of the way these teams match up and because the way both coaches play. I don't think either coach will just, throw caution to the wind and just start winging the ball. I think both of them will play sound complementary football and let the big plays come to them. And so I see it being a tight game. And if both are undefeated, which of course looks now, that they're on a collision course, then those two are in. The question will be, who else is in?
Mm-hmm.
Because all of a sudden, beyond them, things start to get interesting, doesn't it?
Trevor, I threw a fit before the season when we were talking about 12-team playoffs over the idea of Cincinnati making a playoff. When I was told that last year we would have had Cincinnati, Indiana as a playoff game. I watched Cincinnati against Notre Dame. I think they're the third best team in the country. And I don't think the ACC deserves a team into the college football playoff this year. I'm not sure the Pac-12 deserves a team into the playoff this year. I think there's a chance Oklahoma may lose in the Big 12 this year. I have no problem putting Cincinnati into the college football playoff. What did you take away from Cincinnati's win? And is it enough if they do their jobs to get them into the playoff?
I agree with you. In my power rankings, I had Cincinnati at number 4 this week after that win at Notre Dame. People will say that the Notre Dame offense has a banged-up offensive line. They had banged-up quarterbacks. I get that. But their defense is still one of the best in the country. And Desmond Ridder at quarterback and that Cincinnati offense did a phenomenal job against the defense that knew it had to win the game, just like the Notre Dame defense had to win the game the week before against Wisconsin. They came up with 2 pick sixes. And so I think Cincinnati is talented enough. They have the right players in the right places to, from a power ranking standpoint, make the playoff. The problem is that Indiana was supposed to be their first big win, and it looks like Indiana's on the way south. Notre Dame was their other big win, and that was a big win, but especially with the banged-up offense, Notre Dame could well lose another game or two and end up being a 3-loss team, and that would give the committee the opportunity to downgrade Cincinnati's strength of schedule enough to keep them out. And then Cincinnati's other problem is that the Big Ten could very well put 2 teams in. The Big Ten, Jared, could put 2 teams in the playoff. Now, I expect the SEC will. You do too. But with especially Ohio State looking like it's rounding into form, and with only that 1 loss early, if they dominate all the way through to the Big Ten championship, then you have, and it's a tight championship game against, say, Iowa, you've got a chance for a 1-loss Penn State that would have lost to Ohio State, or a 1-loss Iowa that would have lost to Ohio State to make it in just like Alabama and Georgia would. Because you're right, the ACC is pretty much out. The Pac-12 is pretty much out. The Big 12 still has Oklahoma and Oklahoma State undefeated, but neither one is playing in dominant fashion to make the committee think that they are one of the 4 best teams in the country and deserve to be in the playoff. So there's a lot of work to be done in the Big 12. All right, so Notre Dame is out, most likely. So it comes down to Cincinnati or 2 teams out of the Big Ten instead of 1. And so that's the way it looks now. Things can change. We're just in the first week of October. But what would the college football world think if there were 2 SEC teams and 2 Big Ten teams in the playoff and everybody else is on the outside looking?
Oh, man. I'd say just put Cincinnati in there so we don't have to watch 2 Big Ten teams. That's all. And you know what's crazy, too, if that happened? And I'm an SEC guy. The SEC would win both games by like 40-13, and we'd never hear the end of it. Like, our entire lives would just be callers from the Paul Feinbaum show every day talking about how badly they embarrassed the Big 12, or the Big 10. And honestly, while I'm Josh Heupel going on the road to Missouri, it was kind of the one toss-up game on the schedule. The Vols went out there and just laid the wood to Missouri on Saturday. What did you make of that?
I thought it was phenomenal. It looked a lot more like what Josh Heupel wants it to look like, which is to say more up-tempo. It's still not what he wants it to be, but it was faster than it's been this year so far. And they were hitting strikes down the field. You know, Hendon Hooker did a good job of completing the short ones that he was supposed to, but he also had 3 different guys with at least 1 catch of 29 yards or more. The running game did a terrific job. They were very effective on the ground. And so when you look at what the offense is supposed to look like in the coach's head, this was a lot closer to it. And when you look at the defense did a good job too. And I think this matchup against South Carolina this coming week is an interesting one, especially because I think it's one that the Tennessee defense can really shine based on the matchup. But I tell you, as bad as Tennessee looked early in the season, as clunky as the offense was, as many receivers that were open down the field that Joe Milton missed, just overthrowing open guys by 5 yards over and over again. This is what it's supposed to look like. At least it's a lot closer. So I think the hope that people have held is starting to be validated.
Trevor Badich with us. Coming up next, we'll get Trevor's thoughts on the games this week. By the way, how about Kentucky? I mean, my goodness, we'll get Trevor's thoughts on that as well. And we'll get Trevor's 4 teams into the college football playoff at this point. We'll do that coming up next. Trevor Maddich brought to you by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I've told you guys that I use Hiller at my home, and I absolutely love my friends at Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, and you will love them too. That's why they've got a 4.8 out of 5-star rating on over 15,000 online reviews. My friends at Hiller this October, you've noticed all the inventory shortages and the empty shelves everywhere. Now there are serious shortages on equipment and products for your home. HVAC systems, tankless water heaters, generators are all going to be extremely limited in 2022. If you need a replacement, call my friends at Hiller today. Don't wait until you're out of options. Hiller has special financing available, so you buy now and you pay nothing until next year. Their work is backed by the Happy OB or Services Free Guarantee. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, proud supporters of the Vanderbilt Commodores and the Tennessee Volunteers, as well as the Nashville Predators. Hiller, call the Happy Face Truck today. Stillman Company, Trevor Maddich, ESPN college football analyst, joins us every Tuesday, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics. When experience matters, if you ever played in a 4-team tournament, like as a kid growing up, you were always guaranteed 2 games. You know, team 1 would play team 2, then team 3 would play team 4, and then the winners would play each other, and then the losers. It's like the NCAA baseball tournament. And this week we're getting that because Arkansas plays Ole Miss this week after both teams were just throttled by Alabama and Georgia. So, Trevor, when it comes to those 2 teams, Ole Miss and Arkansas, do we think that they were both, humiliated because those teams, Alabama and Georgia, are so good, or because they were kind of phony? And what do you think this weekend's game between the 2 teams will tell us?
No, I think they were smashed by teams that were just that good. Mm-hmm. Arkansas had a quality win over a Texas team that we're seeing is actually a pretty good team. And then, even though Texas A&M has troubles with the offense, their defense is legitimate, and Arkansas looked like they belonged against the Texas A&M defense. They were able to move the ball, and things went well. Now, I get it that K.J. Jefferson, the Arkansas quarterback, was banged up, and he looked banged up. He needs to be able to run at his level best in order to have a chance against a team like Georgia. So that factored into it, but that doesn't change the fact that the offensive line, the running backs, the defensive line just got annihilated by a Georgia team, and especially that Georgia defense, which has a chance not just to be the best defense in the country, it already is. The Georgia defense has a chance to be legendary this year. I mean, I've never seen a front 7 like this that I can remember in college football ever. It's just astonishing. And then Ole Miss really is that good. I mean, their defense has improved from heinous to decent, which is a big, big thing for them. And then Matt Corral coming back with so many guys returning on offense. No, the Alabama was that good. It wasn't a matter of Ole Miss being that bad. I think the humiliation came when Lane Kiffin said in the pregame interview, get your popcorn ready. Like he was just gonna march through the Alabama defense because he knows Nick Saban's defense. And by the way, last year when he put 48 points in a loss on Alabama, Kiffin said to Saban after the game that he had a notebook when he was working for Saban as his offensive coordinator and wrote down all the things that Saban said were things that could beat his defense, weaknesses of the defense, things that offenses could do that Saban has to make sure that they are ready for. And he went and told Saban that last year after he scored 48 points on him. Well, guess what? Even though Saban says it's not about the coaches, the players know it kind of is.
Sure.
And I think his players went out and just took care of business for the case of their coach. But it's a matter of those 2 teams being that good.
Well, and there's no doubt in my mind, to your point, Trev, there's no doubt in my mind that Nick Saban had 2 weeks after that Florida game and got in that rear end at Alabama practice every day for 2 weeks. And when the players had that Florida scare, I think that kind of allowed him to refocus. And I think that kind of led to the embarrassment of Ole Miss. And Lane Kiffin trolling Nick, I don't think help matters as far as he was concerned. Kentucky shocks everybody, speaking of Florida, shocks everybody by beating Florida in Lexington on Saturday night. So now you've got them. You've got the 2 teams that we were just talking about, Ole Miss and Arkansas. Florida's still somewhere there. We know Alabama and Georgia are 1 and 2. Who's number 3?
I think number 3 right now is Penn State.
I meant number 3 in the SEC.
Oh, number 3 in the SEC? That's a tough one. That's a really tough one. I think you'd have to say Kentucky just to respect that they're 5-0 right now with a big win over Florida. But from a power ranking standpoint, Auburn right now is looking like they're coming together, and they're looking like they've got the pieces that have a better chance to upset the teams at the top than Kentucky does. I mean, Kentucky got that win over Florida, but Florida outgained them. Florida basically, defeated them in every metric except on the scoreboard. And part of the reason for the scoreboard was that they blocked a field goal and returned it for a touchdown. And then they got an interception in a short field, and they were able to punch it in. So I'm not taking anything away from Kentucky. Just to say that Auburn probably matches up with Alabama and Georgia with at least a chance better than Kentucky does.
Really? I would say Arkansas. I still think those West teams would beat Kentucky. I know they lost. They got hammered by Alabama and Georgia, but I think Kentucky is going to get, in 2 weeks, They play Georgia on CBS, and I think Georgia is going to hammer Kentucky, and I would still put Arkansas and Ole Miss ahead of Kentucky. That's just me, though.
You can make a good case for that, right? When I say Kentucky, I'm saying, well, gee, they're 5-0, but then that's why I mentioned that 5-0 sometimes isn't as good as it might seem. But Ole Miss still is a talented team. The problem is they showed that physicality will stop their finesse and their flash. And they'll have a chance against Arkansas to show that the Alabama thing was a one-off and that they can actually beat a team that's that physical. So we're about to see. Arkansas, the only real question there is that will KJ Jefferson at quarterback, will he be fully healthy?
Yep.
Because, you can make the case that while Georgia was vastly more physical than Arkansas was, that Arkansas got behind the curve, that they couldn't get back up on top because their quarterback couldn't do what they needed him to do. So you can make that case academically about Arkansas.
What would you consider to be a moral victory for Auburn this week against Georgia?
A fair fight from a physical standpoint. Georgia's got more talent in more places. But if Arkansas is able to smash Georgia, make them hurt, and make them earn every yard, make them earn every stop, then even if they lose, I think Arkansas fans can say, yeah, we proved that we belonged with Georgia. It's like Cincinnati last year in the bowl game. They didn't win against Georgia, but Cincinnati proved that they belonged on the field with Georgia. Arkansas didn't prove that. Clemson hasn't proved anything, but Clemson didn't really prove that either to a large degree because of what happened in that opener. But I think that, Auburn has a chance to prove that. Now, if they're able to do that, Jared, then the ball can bounce in funny ways. Bo Nix is exasperating. Auburn fans love him when he does stuff like he did against LSU last week. Just amazing Johnny Manziel, except much, much slower kind of plays. But they hate him in a football way when he makes dumb decisions and costs them games, which he does as well. I don't know that Bo Nix is going to be able to carry this team to beat Georgia. And if Bo Nix thinks that he can, he's going to be the catalyst for a terrible, crushing defeat for Auburn. I think Bo Nix needs to amp up his professional humility and not try to make plays, just go ahead and distribute. And then when he needs to make plays, be very careful about turning a scramble into a big play for the Georgia defense because he tries to do too much. Meantime, Auburn does have a lot of physical players, but so did Arkansas. So that's going to be their moral victory if they don't win.
Boy, I tell you, Floyd, when Bo Nix was a freshman, never liked him. I mean, and I'm not trying to dump on an 18-year-old at the time, Bo Nix, but that first year that he was the quarterback, I think it was 2 years ago, Floyd was like, I can't stand him. I'm like, he's a freshman in college. He's like, yeah, he's no good. I'm like, oh, okay.
Well, it's like the worst thing that happened to him was when they beat Oregon. Everybody thought that he was fantastic.
He was the savior.
Yeah, and then he was held to that standard. And I think he might have held himself, a little bit higher esteem than he should have.
Sure.
Because I still don't see in Bo Nix a quarterback that throws the ball to the right spot on time with anticipation. He still runs around till he sees a guy wearing a helmet that looks familiar, and then he'll stop and throw the ball there. Well, that'll make some highlight plays, but it'll also get you beat over the long term.
Trevor Matich is our guest. Okay, so you said Alabama 2, Georgia 1, Alabama 2, Penn State 3. I'm going to guess Cincinnati's 4 on your top 4 teams.
Yes.
Why Penn State ahead of Cincinnati?
Penn State ahead of Cincinnati because of the nature of their defense. The Cincinnati defense is very, very good. But Penn State is there's that extra juice. They are so good when they need to rise to make a play in the red zone or on a critical third down. Cincinnati is good on defense, really good. But Penn State has that extra it factor there. Plus, the downfield passing game of Penn State with Jahan Dotson at receiver has been also electrifying. And so I put Penn State just a little bit ahead of Cincinnati, and only a little bit because Penn State's running game still is a work in progress, and it's still a bit disappointing to me. But Cincinnati, I've got at number 4, not because I think they're not worthy, but because I think Penn State, the things that they're good at, they're just astonishingly good at.
Trevor Matich, ESPN college football analyst. Trev, we appreciate you. Big weekend of college football. We'll see you not only on SportsCenter, but also right here on ESPN 102.5 The Game with Game Day on ESPN Radio.
Thanks, Jared.
Yep, Trevor Maddich joining us, as always, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics. Got a lot of stuff to get to. We have only really hit the highlights between college football with Trevor, my conversation with, former NFL head coaches and offensive coordinators about the Titans, and Urban Meyer sticking his fingers, on the seam line of a girl's rear end.
Where they shouldn't be.
Where they should not be. Although, it did seem like she was okay with it. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. I don't think there was any sort of consent issue here, but I don't think that necessarily.
Just in public.
Yeah, I think that maybe it being in public and also it being Urban Meyer and also him being married. I think there's a whole lot of things going on here.
Some things just happen in public that we just rather not discuss.
It wasn't his fault. She was sitting there.
They wanted to take pictures.
Yeah.
They got drug out on the dance floor.
Yeah, it was not his fault.
Selfish. Stupid. Shouldn't have done it. He's so mad. So remorseful. The Jags buy it. Okay. Coming up next, we'll hit the headlines with Caroline. We'll do that. FanDuel Sportsbook, my official sportsbook app. Let me say this. I am pumped about tonight's baseball game. I mean, I am, and you know me, I'm a baseball guy. I am pumped about the Yankees and the Red Sox tonight. I'm pumped about the Cardinals and the Dodgers tomorrow. Playoff baseball is finally here, and this October, you can make every moment more with the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Right now, all customers get a $10 same-game parlay bet bonus. Just place a $20 same-game parlay bet on either wild card game and get a $10 bonus, win or lose. So, Garrett Cole strikeouts, total runs, all those things are all available. Total home runs, total strikeouts, RBIs, and more. I love the FanDuel Sportsbook app, and when you win, you get paid in as little as 24 hours. New to FanDuel Sportsbook, sign up today with the promo code JGM to also receive a risk-free bet up to $1,000. That's promo code JGM so they know that I sent you. 21 and older and present in Tennessee. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 7 days, max bonus $10. Plus $400 final price or longer required. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line 1-800-889-9789. Stillman & Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, ESPN 102.5 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube, thanks to the law offices of Amanda Gentry. Did you see the amount of people that watched or downloaded the podcast or everything else on yesterday's show?
People were eating yesterday's show.
Can I tell you that depresses me?
Well, it's sad because the Titans losing, and I would say in gross fashion, is what the people want. Maybe not necessarily want, but they want to hear what you have to say after.
See, and that bothers me, right?
Well,
it's like when they lose an embarrassing game,
it's good for
everybody's got to go seek me out. See, it's bad for business. I've always told you it's bad for business.
Why?
You want the team to win. Because when the team wins, and then there's more games, and there's more excitement around the city, and then it's buzzing, and then it's... I noticed this with the Predators. That when I said that there was no chance they could beat the Chicago Blackhawks, no shot in 2017, and they did, I mean, it exploded. And I was like, winning's good for business. And I'm sure, and winning is good for business as far as the Titans are concerned, too.
Postseason is great for business.
But for them to lose and to see all the people that were jumping on board to watch or download on the podcast yesterday's show, it kind of broke my heart. Like, I am a Titan fan, people. Like, I like the Titans. I mean, I want them to win. I get viscerally angry watching these games. I have people that are like, oh, I'd love to watch a Titan game with you. And I'm like, no. Because I get so worked up watching the Titans. And so to see the people, you know, come out in mass droves. And look, I know this is a popular show, win or lose. But, I mean, to see the people in mass droves when they lose, it's like, here's what I told myself. Because you know how, like, sometimes we tell ourselves things just to make us feel better?
Yeah.
What I told myself was, I said, they know they'll find the truth with this show. So when they win, they come to this show because they're excited about the team and they know they're going to hear good things because this show is going to tell the truth. Mm-hmm. And when they lose, they come to this show because they know people are going to tell the truth and not sugarcoat it and not tell them things that they want to hear, but more importantly, things they need to hear. Now, I don't know if that's true. I'm just saying that's what I've told myself.
Well, I think there's also an element, too, that, you know, it's almost comforting after your team loses or whenever something bad happens to you that everyone's just kind of in this boat together. And it's like, the Titans were bad yesterday. It's like, yeah, the Titans were bad yesterday. Like, these were the problems. Like, yeah, you're right. Those were the problems. I think people kind of feel comforted knowing that they're not alone in that loss.
Even when they beat the Colts, and I'm like, I thought they didn't play very well, and everybody got mad.
Yes, everyone got mad because I think they were thinking, well, they won.
Back in the day when I would listen, you know, as more of a fan, I always wanted to hear the radio. Obviously, you weren't here at the time, but I always wanted to hear the radio more after a loss.
Right, because after a win, it's like it's a win.
Just because you were so frustrated and you wanted to hear them get ripped.
So when they were bad, when Mike Munchak was the coach, they lost a game at Denver when Peyton Manning was with the Broncos. I mean, just got embarrassed. I mean, it was just like 55-10. And I was listening at the time. I was on the radio in Louisville at the time. I was listening to the postgame show with Mark Howard. And, you know, I don't know if this is still the case with the stream, but it was definitely the case back then where there wasn't a delay. Like on the radio, there are FCC rules. Mm-hmm. So if you call in and say something crazy, we dump it and the people driving in their cars can't hear it. But on the stream, sometimes it comes through, and some of those postgame calls were wild. I mean, and Mark, you know, he took it like a champ, but I mean, they were wild. You know, one of them asked questions like, you know, let's go to Bob up next. And he said, yeah, Mark, I just wanted to know, why do the Titans blank so much blank? And how does it feel putting lipstick on that pig, baby? And guy hung up. Mark was like, okay. All right.
Maybe we won't go to Bob. Who's next?
Guy. Yeah, it was great. Back in the old day. Time now. Oh. I'm in a giving mood today. Santa Stillman.
Oh, boy.
Would like to allow somebody to win a pair of tickets to see the Predators take the Carolina Hurricanes on in hockey on Saturday night at Bridgestone Arena. Be caller 5-615-737-1025. Right now, and those tickets are yours. Time now for Headlines with Caroline.
We're spanning the sports world. It's Headlines with Caroline. on Stillman and Company, right here on Nashville's best sports talk.
ESPN
102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Headlines with Caroline, brought to you by Firo Tequila, the spiciest infused tequila on the market. The world belongs to the brave.
I like that. That was nice.
Thank you.
Yesterday, I told the people that Jimmy G left the game on Sunday with a calf injury. He said he felt it in the first series of the game. It was kind of traveling down toward his Achilles. He said I should probably, I'll probably be out for the next couple of weeks. What?
Just the way you were like, I told you yesterday. Like,
I did.
Okay, Schefter.
I did.
Like,
I did tell you. I didn't break the news. I didn't report it.
You looked at me like, so I told you yesterday.
Well, I didn't break. I didn't report the news. I didn't tweet it
You
out.
did tell me yesterday.
And say league sources can confirm that Jimmy G left the game. Like, no, I didn't break any sort of news. That was not my job. But I did tell you that yesterday.
You did tell me.
To be fair,
You did tell
I did
me.
tell you that yesterday. But everything that Jimmy G said about, I'll probably be out for a couple of weeks, he walked it all back. Got an MRI yesterday morning, and they learned that it really wasn't as bad as they initially thought, and said he could be healthy for the game against Arizona on Sunday.
Amazing to me that guys tough it out when they got a guy right there to take their job.
Isn't that interesting?
Amazing.
And interesting.
It's amazing. Oh, my God.
Interesting how it's not a game to some, dinky little team. It just happens to be the unbeaten Arizona Cardinals. Because I feel like that calf would have been, hurting him a little bit more if it wasn't a team like that.
It's like everybody, Aaron Rodgers is going on. Draft Jordan Love, MVP. It is amazing. Amazing.
The kick in the butt you get when
Carson
someone is
Wentz.
waiting there to take over your job whenever you can't do it.
Carson Wentz has a year of everybody calling him soft. Leaves the facility on a scooter on a Monday, plays when he can't even move on the next Sunday. It's amazing. Amazing.
But he will be reevaluated tomorrow, so I'll have more updates for you. I may or may not break them.
Why do people not get worked up about Shanahan not playing the rookie quarterback, but everybody wants Matt Nagy fired because he doesn't want to play the rookie quarterback?
I think because Andy Dalton sucks. And
So does Jimmy G?
I don't think Jimmy G sucks.
Jimmy G and Andy Dalton are not that far apart.
But I feel like Chicago fans have been so fed up with their quarterback situation for so long, and Andy Dalton really
So they want to
isn't-
rush the kid out there and ruin him?
I don't think that's what they want to do, but they want him to play. So whatever comes from that, you can interpret as you'd like.
I don't get how we live in this society where people think that sitting a quarterback on the bench is a bad thing. I don't understand how. Matt
I think when
Nagy-
you've been starved for a franchise quarterback for so long and you finally get one that you think could be that guy, could be your franchise quarterback, so you want him out there as soon as possible.
I mean,
you want results right now.
I understand that. I'm just saying, the head coach clearly doesn't want to play him. Clearly, he doesn't think the kid's ready. Clearly, Shanahan does not think that Trey Lance is ready. They don't want to play these guys. So why does everybody else demand, oh, my God, Matt Nagy's the worst. He should be fired. He should be I don't know. I find it to be so uneducated as far as football is concerned. Go ahead.
But Joey Bosa had some words for the refs after the Chargers win
I saw
last
this.
night over the Raiders. So he was absolutely furious. The refs missed a holding call late in the fourth quarter. So he just absolutely blew up. If anyone didn't make it to the end of the game, he absolutely blew up on the refs last night. Refs called an unsportsmanlike conduct call on him, 15-yard penalty, which put the Raiders at the Chargers' 48-yard line. The Raiders were down 14 points. Ultimately, 2 plays later, Derwin James intercepted Derek Carr, solidified their win. So it didn't really end up making a huge difference to the end of the game. It didn't really make any difference at all. But this is what Joey Bosa had to say about the refs last night.
Training was that unsportsmanlike conduct penalty for you?
I didn't even know they called the penalty on me because I was fuming, but, refs are blind. Simple. I'm sorry, but you're blind. Open your eyes and do your job. It's so bad. It's unbelievable. Look at the play. Sack, game over, 15 yards. It's a big deal. Obviously, that's on me. I should never lose my control like that. But these guys have got to do a better job because it's been years of terrible, terrible missed calls left and right. It's really pathetic, honestly. But pathetic on me, too, for doing what I did. Call or not, I have to take a step back and just go to the next play. But, man, they just seem to not even have their eyes open half the time.
I'm on his side.
So, yeah, he sounds very calm. But like his words, he is obviously very worked up about it.
Yeah, the officiating in the NFL is terrible.
It's terrible.
It's awful.
And it's not exclusive to just last night.
Nope.
It's not exclusive to this week. We have seen it in nearly every game every week so far in the NFL.
Terrible.
It has been atrocious.
What's next?
Kirby Smith held GT Daniels out of...
Kirby Smart.
What did I say?
Kirby Smith.
Oh, Kirby Smart. Excuse me. Kirby Smart held JT Daniels out of throwing drills at practice today, so he did not play against Auburn on he did not play against Arkansas on Saturday. Stetson Bennett filled in for him. Had a fine day.
I think I could play
yards.
quarterback at Georgia right now.
Okay.
I'm serious.
I don't think so.
The quarterback position at Georgia, and this is why I would pick Alabama over Georgia right now. The kid at Alabama can play quarterback now. Like, he's a stud.
Mm-hmm.
These guys that have been playing quarterback for Georgia, they're a lot like the other guys who've been playing quarterback at Georgia, like Hudson Mason and give me some other ones. Not Aaron Murray. He was good. Who are some of the other guys, Ian, that have been playing quarterback at Georgia?
Jake Fromm.
Yeah, the same freaking bums. Like, it's the same guy. They're all like 6'3". They all
look the same.
They all look the exact same. And it's, again, like, I mean, seriously, like anybody could play quarterback. Ken Seals at Vanderbilt right now could go play quarterback at Georgia, and they're the second best team in the SEC and the country.
And I think for the past, 5 to 10 years, Georgia quarterbacks, like you said, they've been fine. They've gotten the job done, but they've been surrounded by really good offensive lines and really good defenses.
Yeah.
But JT Daniels was held out of throwing drills today at practice. His status is up in the air for their game against Auburn this weekend. But I don't know how much of a difference it's really going to make.
I could play quarterback for Georgia this week, and we'd beat Auburn.
I'm
the quarterback.
At Georgia, you are?
If I'm playing quarterback, I'm playing quarterback, and we could win that game.
Congratulations. That's a pretty big deal for you. But, 72 passing yards against Arkansas, 273 rushing yards.
I love it.
Just ridiculous.
I love it. I think I'm
past weekend.
Sometimes a little bit of a natural contrarian, and so all these people out there don't like running the football anymore, and so I just love teams that run the football.
I run the damn ball.
Oh, I love teams that run the football.
I love it.
Headlines with Caroline, presented by Fiero Tequila, the spiciest infused tequila on the market. The world belongs to the brave. By the way, don't miss the pregame show. That's right. We'll be at the Corner Pub in Bellevue this Sunday. Mark Howard, Chris Sanders, Jared Stillman, 9:30 to 11:30. Again, that's Corner Pub in Bellevue at 8058 Highway 100. Prior to the Titans and the Jags. Pregame show brought to you by TriStar Moving, Parman Tractor and Equipment, FreedomTireGuys.com, FanDuel, E2 Roofing, Hillside Medical, Social Furniture, and Screwball Peanut Butter Whiskey. Coming up next, we got a baseball game to bet. I am excited. And look, I'm one that thinks that, talking about baseball doesn't really move the needle in Nashville. One game playoff, Yankees versus Red Sox. I'm excited about it. And I'm excited that Caroline wants to tell you about BetUS.
I want to tell you about BetUS because there is a big baseball game tonight, and if you want to put some money on it, you can do it at BetUS. Football is back finally. We've got baseball playoffs heating up, so get in on the action. BetUS has been America's favorite sportsbook for over 25 years. Over 25 years. That is a very long time, so that's exactly why I endorse them. They have integrity. They have longevity. You know that you're going to get paid with BetUS whenever you win. Plus, they offer everything. They have live bets, MMA, golf, horses, esports, all kinds of crazy bets. Anything you want to put money on, you can do that at BetUS. So call them today. They'll walk you through setting up an account. Their number is 1-800-79-BET-US. Just call 1-800-79-BET-US, and they will walk you through setting up an account. Nobody in the industry gives bigger bonuses than BetUS. You can get up to 200% in bonuses. And if you join now and you mention GAME, G-A-M-E, you can get a sign-up bonus on your first deposit. Nobody in the industry beats BetUS. I bet at BetUS, so should you. Go now to BetUS.com. Join today. Put in promo code GAME, and you'll get a sign-up bonus on your first deposit. That is BetUS.com.
Stillman and Company is delivered by TriStar, moving ESPN 1025 The Game. Silly underdog picks, that's right. Take your 3 football underdog teams you think will win this week. You can play at thegamenashville.com or with the Game Nashville mobile app. And again, Silly underdog picks brought to you by Volunteer Hose and Gasket. So we've got a baseball game. And I get it.
A big one, actually.
This is like football. Everybody was talking football. And I'm not going to lie. I want to talk football. You know, I mean, we had so much stuff today that we didn't, we got to, but we didn't, go deeper than because it was okay, I talked to this assistant coach, these 2 coaches, one that was an assistant coach in the NFL, one that was a head coach in the NFL, and kind of what they told me about the Titans offensive line. And then we got to go to Trevor. And then we got to go, we spent an hour on Urban, and then we got knocked off the air, and then we just had a lot going on today. I know that the city of Nashville is not a baseball town. I know that it's not.
There are baseball fans in Nashville.
Sure. There's baseball fans everywhere, though.
Yeah.
There's baseball fans in Poughkeepsie. I don't know if it's a baseball town or not. We know, what Nashville is. I do think, though, a 1-game playoff tonight. There's no Monday Night Football. There's no Thursday Night Football. There's nothing else.
There's no other baseball games.
No, there's no. I mean, is there any other sporting event tonight?
We've got a Predators game.
But that's an exhibition game.
Mm-hmm.
Any other big real.
Not that I know of.
So I mean, we got the Yankees versus the Red Sox tonight
in a wild card game.
I'm excited.
That's a big deal.
And I think that you can. And the one thing about baseball, and Rob Manfred said this. I think he's the worst commissioner in all sports.
100%.
But he said that Adam Silver told him that he doesn't need to worry about the pace of play for baseball. I watch baseball sometimes, and I think baseball should go to 7-inning games, especially college baseball. If you want to talk me out of the pros, okay, I can do it. But, I think, you need to hurry the game up. Well, Rob Manfred said that Adam Silver told him, don't worry about pace of play. And Rob Manfred said to Adam Silver, what do you mean? He goes, it's perfect for live betting. Baseball
that's true.
is perfect for live betting. And I thought about that, and I'm like, you know what? I think that is the next trend. Like, I do think that is kind of the next spot we're going is the live betting. And as somebody who treats, like I tweet all throughout the Titans game.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes, I'm trying to tweet, the next play's happening. If you're trying to place a bet.
Things happen very quickly.
You're trying to place a bet.
Right.
So I would love to see what the betting numbers are, because I think this is the first time where sports gambling has been pretty much now legal. Like, it didn't start till November 1st here in Tennessee last year.
And
This is the first big baseball game where live betting has been. I bet you the betting numbers for today's baseball game are through the roof.
And baseball is already such a stat-driven sport.
Sure.
And I feel like sports betting is also very stat-driven.
Right. I can bet home runs and strikeouts.
Yes. It feels like the perfect marriage of just like number nerds.
Time now for Caroline's.
Get in on the action. Put the money on the mahogany. What's on tap on the sports books? It's time to break it all down with Caroline's. Here on Stillman and Company.
On ESPN.
102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Caroline's is brought to you by BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook for over 25 years. You can sign up at betus.com, mention GAME, G-A-M-E, and get a sign-up bonus on your first deposit. Like we said, Red Sox, Yankees got an AL wildcard game tonight. Garrett Cole on the mound for the Yankees, who is 16-8, the 3.23 ERA in 30 starts. But he hasn't been that great as of late. In his last 3 starts, he's 1-2 with a 7.64 ERA. So I'm going to take Boston tonight. I'm going to take the Red Sox plus 105. They have Nathan Eovaldi on the mound, 11-9 with a 3.75 ERA in 32 starts. The Red Sox are 7-1 in his last 8 starts. And against the Yankees this season, he has a slightly better ERA than he has on the season. He's 2-2 with a 3.71 ERA.
So I'm going to take the Yankees tonight.
Okay.
And, first of all, Garrett Cole was bought by the Yankees for games like this.
Yes.
And Nate Eovaldi helped them win the World Series a couple years ago and was fantastic and got a new contract because of it. And Eovaldi has great playoff stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He's got strikeout stuff. Garrett Cole was purchased by the Yankees for this game. But I think what this is going to come down to, I think Giancarlo Stanton has been on fire at the end of the season. They went into Fenway a couple weeks ago, took 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
Stanton was a monster. I think this is going to come down to the end. I'm going to take the Yankees tonight to win. And because let's not kid ourselves, at the end of the day, Major League Baseball.
Was that outside? When the Yankees
was that outside the strike zone?
Nope, I don't think so. I think it was right in the middle.
What other bets we got on the game tonight?
But also to note, JD Martinez will be out for the Red Sox tonight.
Yeah, he stepped on a base.
He's been kind of a slugger for them recently, so there's something to note. But you kind of took it out of my mouth. I was going to take Giancarlo Stanton to hit a home run tonight, plus 230. You can also take Joey Gallo with those same odds, Aaron Judge, plus 250, Kyle Schwarber, plus 390, Anthony Rizzo, plus 400. I always forget he's not in Chicago anymore. And also Rafael Devers, plus 470. But I'm going to take Giancarlo Stanton, plus 230.
I'll take Rizzo.
All right.
I'll take Rizzo. I think, they bring in the hired guns. BetUS.
Caroline's is brought to you by BetUS, America's favorite sports book for over 25 years. You can sign up. Use code GAME for a sign-up bonus.
That's going to do it for us. We're out of here. Predators hockey. Darren McFarland is standing by with the pregame show, which is next. And then it's the Preds and the Canes. We'll see you tomorrow, too.